Live.
Hi, welcome everybody to today's board meeting and study session. We have a very brief open meeting at this moment. I'd like to ask, let's see, Mrs. Walker-Schuman, would you please lead us in the flag salute?
Yes, I'd be delighted. Everyone please rise. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mel.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, we have some public comment, and I seem to have lost my screen here, so I'm going to ask Mrs. Marcus to please start us with the public comment, and then Mr. Margot, you have some as well, and then I'll finish up. Is that good?
Hold on just 1 second.
Somebody, and then I'm going to ask everybody else to mute themselves while.
Hello.
Okay, so maybe Noah, you will start first, and Mrs. Marcus is on the phone.
Okay.
Okay.
Mrs. Marcus, Noah's going to start, and then we're going to go to you, and then I'll finish off. Okay, just a little bit of switch, and everybody else should be.
Okay, I'm going to read number 13.
Yes, I got that. He knows that. Thank you so much.
My older child just graduated from BHHS, and my younger one just finished 9th grade. Let me start by saying that their experience in the spring with Home Learning 2.0 has been very positive. Given no preparation back in March, their various teachers were able to continue with teaching their subjects. And my kids were able to participate in class discussions using Zoom, reach the teachers as necessary outside of class, do their homework, do group projects, and complete quizzes and exams. With COVID-19 numbers still rising, many parents would have assumed that the logical step is to move on to Home Learning 3.0 this fall. But mysteriously, this option is not even on the table. Weeks ago, the district sent out a parent survey via email about whether they prefer going back to school or learning from home in the fall. But no details of any kind about the options were given. Parents who filled out the survey had to imagine what each option will be offered, and now we are given two choices, both with serious issues. Either one, a hybrid approach of learning from both school and home and from BHUSD teachers based on established curriculum, or two, a strictly stay-home approach via something called APEX. I know of coworkers and friends who have lost loved ones to COVID-19. Given that the virus is still running rampant in this country and more young people are contracting it and with serious consequences, it is very difficult to send kids to school. I believe it is way too soon. As for the second option, I understand that APEX is meant for independent study, like for students with a movie career on the side and have decided that education is secondary. Class choices, AP honors and elective classes, and curriculum rigor pale in comparison with those from BHUSD. Review of APEX is 2 stars out of possible 5. 2, it is not clear whether BHUSD teachers have a role in teaching or just tutoring. APEX is costing tens of thousands of dollars, so parents are told to continue with BHUSD curriculum. They have no choice but to risk the health of their students and the teachers, and an extension, their families. Otherwise, they will have to pick a rather crappy independent study option with all the disadvantages it brings. Given new COVID-19 cases are unfortunately on the rise, I believe the district should implement Home Learning 3.0 for the fall. The teachers now have hands-on experience with utilizing technology to run their classes. The district should help them get ready. The kids have proven to be able to learn despite the challenging environment, and everyone, students, teachers, parents, and staff, will feel safe for school to be conducted from homes. We should cut off after 3 minutes, so if anybody's timing.
I am timing, and we still have 30 seconds to go on that one.
No. Okay, thank you. Mrs. Hacker, did you want me to continue, or you pass it on?
30 seconds, so you can do, I mean, you're not done with the letter, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah, that was it.
That was it. So you can now, if Noah, did I assign you another? Just keep going, Noah, or do you want to just?
Okay. Yeah. No, I'll take care of mine. I'm reading number 10.
Thank you.
Noah, which one did you just read? I'm sorry, you didn't.
Number 5, Daniel Lowe.
He's reading number 10 next. Now he's reading number 10.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would it be possible for the board to consider a more robust home learning option in lieu of Apex in collaboration with our teachers so that our teachers could teach online to students wanting to remain at home this fall? Apex, with barely any teacher interaction, does not seem enough for our students to fully tackle the core subjects for a full semester of learning. That was Linda Caroline. Moving on. Fall options. Dear board members, I want to thank you for taking the time to read my letter. I am writing to urge you to create a Home Learning 3.0 as the model to use when we return in August. We are all forced to make hard decisions at this point. When my son asks if he can have a play date, I want to say yes. However, I don't. His health, the health of the community, and the health of the nation are priorities. The hybrid model puts teachers at risk. Those teachers who are also community members, parents, sons, daughters, and human beings. Those teachers who will be forced to expose themselves to families who are not abiding by the safety guidelines. Those teachers who may be immunocompromised or have spouse children who are immunocompromised. Families in our district are given the choice to choose ILC over hybrid if they are concerned with safety, but teachers are not given the same opportunity. I understand we have working parents, families, and multiple children across grade levels and other case-specific conflicts. However, what is the priority? It has already been clearly expressed that the ILC and hybrid models are not ideal. So let's focus on HL 3.0 and keeping everyone safe. Home Learning 3.0 should be put in place. Training and collaboration among staff should take place to ensure our school-age children get the best education we can provide given the circumstance. Thank you for your consideration. Ashley Nation, first grade teacher, high school parent, and BV graduate. Let's see, next one, number 12. I think I have 12, yes. With COVID-19 cases still surging and people still arguing about whether masks should be mandatory in our country, I believe the safest thing for us is to have teachers teaching or streaming virtually on campus, and students will stay home to continue distance learning. There is so much we could do to make home learning more successful since we already had 3 months of practice. With so little time, completely discontinue something we have started and reinventing another wheel right now does not make sense. The main issue here was the lack of communication with staff and parents before those two options were rolled out. Principals should hold a virtual faculty meeting and gather teachers' input. What we need is a better forum for parents and teachers to voice their concerns. The surveys we filled in weeks ago did not provide enough information for us to plan, and with COVID-19 cases surging, parents and teachers will now have different feelings about coming back to campus. Some students who really struggled with home learning, especially those in special ed, should be given priority to return to campus. Many other students thrive during home learning and can continue without any problems. As of now, we already know that teachers and parents do not want the ILC Apex option. With the two choices given, the district will collect an inaccurate data on July 15th of how many parents really need to send their kids to campus because Home Learning 3.0 is not offered. I hope the board and the district will seriously consider replacing the ILC Apex option with Home Learning 3.0. And I'll read my last. No, let me just, 14 is short. Let me finish 14 and then you can take over, Mrs. Markin. School in the fall. Hello, everyone. I feel that this is all getting way too complicated and we need to simplify what's happening in the fall. Since there may or may not be another lockdown and we are uncertain, perhaps the first semester should be online with the teachers teaching just like they did at the end of the last year. This way our children and our teachers will be safe and the students still able to have interactions with a teacher and not taught by a computer. Parents are also having a hard time because they cannot make any work, daycare, or other kind of commitment with all of this uncertainty. We can then decide what to do next while the first semester is in motion. Thank you. That was from Lisa Vallis.
Okay, you ready for 13? Isabel? Okay. Good afternoon. Even though I now reside 500 miles north, I still feel connected to BHUSD. I have maintained regular communication with the teachers, former students, and parents and keep up on how things are going. 2020 has been a year of massive chaos, and you have tasked with reconfiguring the delivery of instruction faster than the eye can blink, which appears to be a Herculean task. Now you have an infinitesimally small amount of time to plan for the 2021 school year. I applaud how you have consistent communication with the parents. I am, however, concerned about how little communication you have maintained with the teachers and the instructional assistants. It seems to me without the teacher input greater than what was available on the options committee, the district is missing a vital piece of the problem-solving equation. Teachers deserve more respect from the district than what is going on. Perhaps include teachers and staff in the virtual coffee and/or send surveys to ask vital questions to all staff. After speaking with many teachers, I've heard loud and clear their anxiety at speaking up for concern of how their truth would be received by the administration. From speaking to many people, I know that home learning BH2O had some challenges and some teachers were not as adept as others in the implementation. Perhaps training and coaching could have helped those teachers be more successful. Weekly staff meetings with administrators and regular communication could provide additional assistance. APEX as a curriculum does not align with the California standards, nor does it provide the rigor for which Beverly is known. If APEX is a tool for teachers to use as it enhances their already developed curriculum, it could be extremely useful. But as a standalone curriculum, it has serious flaws. Teachers have a curriculum, but they have to reinvent the platform for teaching it online, and that is the support they need. Teachers were charged with this with little support. The coaches were overwhelmed with the vast differences of needs depending on each unique program. Additionally, special education has been using Edgenuity for the past year successfully. What would be gained for them by switching to APEX? APEX appears to be designed for the independent learner, but the curriculum does not match for the APEX student, for the AP student, and is a set up for failure for many special education students. The lack of legitimate testing format, which would ensure the integrity of testing, is not available, and accountability is sometimes lacking given the multiple number of times students are able to take and retake assessments. What happened to Home Learning 3 as an option for those teachers who were clearly able to provide appropriate instruction? As COVID-19 cases increase, it is hard to see how returning to school before the second semester is a viable option. How has the district planned to create plexiglass barriers, provide adequate Lysol Clorox wipes, face masks, face shields for staff and students so all will feel safe?
Mrs.
Everyone knows.
I'm sorry to interrupt. That's 3 minutes.
Okay, this was a letter from Molly Peterson, and it will be in the minutes if anybody cares to read it. Okay. I was also asked to read 6, 7, 8, and 9. So here goes. Please, number 6, home learning versus live streaming. Please strongly consider adding a third option for students who need to stay home for health reasons by offering a more robust version of Home Learning 2.0. APEX is not an adequate alternative for many students. It does not offer many AP and honors courses, which adversely affects our college-bound students. On a social-emotional level, students miss out on developing meaningful relationships with our fabulous teachers and the benefit of having peers in the classroom environment. I believe that programs like APEX were designed for students who could not attend school. Can't talk now. On a social emotional level, students miss out on developing meaningful relationships with our fabulous teachers and the benefit of having peers in the classroom environment. I believe programs like APEX were designed for students who could not attend school due to other outside interests, nor the full-time students, not for full-time students. Self-taught, self-paced learning is not beneficial for the majority of our students. Julia Green. Number 7, I am greatly concerned that safety protocol cannot and will not be followed on campuses. Theory versus practice is always a concern. I'm aware that no protocols have been put into place at the district office as of yet. People are walking both directions up and down narrow stairwells. Some people are wearing masks, many are not. This is a small building compared to our campuses. Since it is more likely that we will not be able to practice even minimal measurements on the elementary campuses due to students' age and environment, BHUSD should immediately put Home Learning 3.0 into effect. This will give teachers more time to plan and prepare and improve the practices for the fall of 2020. We are spinning our wheels and giving less and less time to the inevitable preparation necessary to teach online in fall. We can easily do this and do an exemplary job if given ample time to prepare. And that was from Amy Arabalo. And number 8, my name is Gabriel Radonsky. I am an elementary teacher at Horace Mann and a parent to 3 children in the district at Horace Mann, the middle school and the high school. I'm concerned that for Learning to School, there are only the ILC and hybrid options and lack, therefore, a home learning 3.0 option. I started my career as an educator in this district 20 years ago to teach students in a classroom. Never did I think I would be teaching third graders remotely. We all know instruction in the classroom is better for everyone, but during this time, I truly know how educators and students will be safe and benefit from the ILC and hybrid model more than a robust home. I truly don't know how educators than a robust level. My students learned and grew. My students' parents were supportive, and my own children worked hard and achieved. I know as a working parent, it is difficult to manage, remediate, and enrich our children at home. But I believe that our teachers stepped up to that task this past spring with very little planning or preparation. Why don't we focus on improving, planning, and implementing Home Learning 3 at least as an option? I've attended meetings with administrators and watched the board meeting, and with less than 6 weeks before returning to school with students, important questions are still unanswered. Will CDEC and CDE recommendations be followed to the highest degree? How will teachers teach and manage simultaneously students in the physical classroom and students at home all day long? Why can't my elementary, middle school, and high school students who choose ILC have the same opportunities to take specialist classes and electives? How will students and teachers be safe in small rooms without proper ventilation, windows that don't open, and with one door in and out of a hallway? Do we have the technology infrastructure to successfully offer the hybrid model? What if I become sick? My students become sick, my own children, my colleagues. Why is the July 15th a hard and set fast deadline for the programs to be vetted, designed, and explained to parents? Again, why are we not focusing on improving, planning, and implementing Home Learning 3.0 as an option? And number 9, I'm supposed to read, I believe. The district choice of Apex Learning Virtual School as the only online learning alternative is completely unacceptable. Live streaming of actual classes is the only acceptable alternate to in-person attendance. My son, an honors student, is attending Apex this summer. Even with supervision by a Beverly Hills Unified School teacher, the experience is dismal. It is nothing like the education we have come to expect. Why should students who are unable to attend in-person classes due to a worldwide pandemic be separated from their peers and receive a second-class education? Why are they not entitled to receive the same level of instruction from our teachers? Why are our staff and administrators unwilling to step up to the plate and live stream all classes? We have been told that the teachers union has refused to have classes recorded. Some have pointed to the Education Code from 1976, which requires the consent of every individual teacher and principal to be recorded by anyone. The law was intended to stop students from secretly recording teachers. I find it hard to believe that our beloved teachers would use a law passed prior to the advent of the internet to block live streaming. The district should take the position that this law does not at all apply to the current situation. The greatest universities in our country, including Stanford, have entire online degree programs with live classes and teachers instead of embracing the trend toward online education. Our district has chosen to block it. This is a chance for the administration, the teachers, and their union to show they really care for the students instead of just maintaining the status quo. Home learners should be offered the exact same education and teacher supervision as their in-person peers. There is no reason in the world that our students should be forced to accept a second-class experience through an outside contracted entity. The district should immediately reconsider its online learning plan and offer live streaming of all classes for the fall of 2020. And that was written by Richard Green. And I have one more to read, but I'll read it at the end. That's it.
Okay, so I'm going to go and you have one more, Mrs. Marcus. So I'll start and then you can finish with whatever else you have. I just want to state for the record that I realize that my username says Benjamin Hacker, and I apologize for that. I'm just going to have the meeting with that. So I'm getting texts and emails, I'm aware of it, and I'll change it at the next meeting. I apologize. So the first letter I have comes to us from Dr. Arith Yaffe Berg. Dear members of the school board and school administrators, I write as a parent of a student at BVMS. I am concerned by the two options that we have been presented with. While the hybrid option seems beneficial to our students in returning them to a semblance of normal state, the current spike in virus cases suggests that that option may not be viable given that school begins in just a few weeks. The only other option, the ILC/APEX option, raises concerns for me and a number of other parents. To the best of my knowledge, APEX is not being considered by any other district other than ours as a solution during the coronavirus period. APEX offers no honors courses for middle school students and very limited contact hours with teachers and peers. When students do meet with a teacher, it is not specifically a district teacher. The curriculum was not developed for BH students and was not tailored for students who have special needs. This one-size-fits-all approach is not appropriate for most students in our district. Has the school administration considered a more viable alternative to APEX if the coronavirus spikes continues and the state mandates that all teaching be done remotely? Various other school districts and schools have already communicated that they would have their own teachers teaching remotely. This seems the most appropriate option. What is being done to support the teachers with technology? Can the funds that would have been used for APEX be redirected to teacher resources, such as technical support? My thanks for considering these questions. Again, Dr. Ruth Yaffe Berg. I have a few other letters. Bear with me while I switch screens. Okay. ILC commitment. Thanks for taking the time. We are in turmoil trying to decide between the two learning options given that so much information changes in a matter of hours. We are decision-making blind. If the district is saying that if we choose ILC for our children and public health conditions change and it becomes safe for children to be back in school without social distancing, if COVID restrictions lift, then my kids cannot return to school this semester. If so, that makes this decision so much harder. Kids being in school and socializing, especially at the younger grades, feels of the highest of importance, more important than the different learning tracks. I would request that this is looked at a time when kids' lives have been in terrible upheaval. But as a family with the current state of California and no idea what it will look like in a month, we are being asked to make a major decision without any real facts. And that comes from Mrs. Jane Maggs. BVMS learning options. I am a middle school parent who is requesting that BHUSD provide adequate, transferable, and safe, high-standard school education for the two learning options that have been proposed to the parents. In either case, BHUSD provides clear and succinct protocols and tracks that are comparable to pre-COVID. The current ILC option does not have an honor track, and parents who have honor students have been told that this is not available. This is not acceptable. If BHUSD teachers are teaching the ILC track online, then BHUSD should train and provide adequate teachers to teach the necessary education for the honor students who do not want to put their health at risk attending on-ground option. 2. Option 2 track is a default track, and BHUSD has no protocol set up to ensure that proper cleaning and disinfecting occurs between classes as well as other objects that the students touch during their classes. BHUSD has consistently stated it will be up to standards once those are known. This again is not acceptable as a protocol which exceeds standards should be construed and distributed to the parents prior to July 15th, the deadline for ILC sign-up. We understand that protocol could change, but BHUSD needs to head and steer this protocol, not the other way around. We need, just a minute. We need, and I am requesting that the following be addressed publicly in writing and distributed to all parents. 1, offering honors classes to the ILC model. This is a must from a standpoint of parents and from a standpoint for parents and students. Anything else is not acceptable. 2, on the ground campus, learning the off-week students must have access to a standardized, not left up to the teacher to decide full visual and audio integration of students for students studying at home so that they can interact with their peers and teachers. Just a minute. If anything else is not acceptable. 3, A well-formulated plan for daily classroom cleaning, cleaning between classes, and equipment cleaning for students on campus. 4, a well-timed and thought-out daily protocol for temperature testing throughout the day for campus, students, staff, teachers. The BVMS proposed community coffee meeting should take place in the evening, where all parents who are interested can attend after work, as I and many other working parents cannot attend during the day or in the morning hours. I applaud where BHUSD is now and how difficult this is for all of us, but mandating an inferior but safer education online for our children because BHUSD cannot implement new and creative solutions to the above is just not an option. As this community and others move into uncharted waters, we do expect our educational leaders to seek in implementing the most creative ways in education and delivery systems. Those must fulfill solutions for our children that do not sacrifice the students' educational needs. Thank you, Leslie LePage. The next is from, it's a long letter. I think it's a long letter. Oh, it comes from Mr. Michael Fetterman from Beverly Hills High School Visual Arts. He's also the chairman. Let's go back. I'm going to begin. Hello, I'm writing to you as a deeply concerned teacher and as a parent of 2 high school students and 1 middle school student attending the district. I, like most majority of your teachers here, find it extremely hard to justify the purchase and use of Apex ILC curriculum for a multitude of reasons. The largest unspoken truth to your community members is who is teaching the classes. ILC Apex is set up in a manner that will require teachers to be responsible for curriculum which is outside their area of specialization. This means that the ILC Apex students will have 1 hour a week individual contact, 2 hours a week whole group contact with a teacher who is, with the exception of 1 subject and 6, will be teaching the curriculum that doesn't even belong to be at Beverly Hills High School or Beverly Hills High School Middle School, scope and sequence. By and large, these students will be getting tutors, not teachers, for most subjects. Even if the ILC Apex curriculum is to be adopted as a supplement to the existing curriculum, that is, for a teacher to add or subtract content from, it is essentially renders a necessity for the ILC Apex coursework invalid if we are just going to change it anyway. Furthermore, any teacher who uses the outsourced curriculum for content in which they don't specialize will not even know what parts of ILC Apex meet our rigor and standards and which do not. School identity and course rigor, it is important to recognize the meaningful nature of attending Beverly Hills High School as opposed to a generic school. Just a minute. School I value in moving forward with Learning 3.0 with unique teachers and uniquely designed coursework. We know our community. We know how to prepare our students for post-secondary education and career paths. We don't need outsourced, prepackaged generic content. We don't need an added burden with sourcing this curriculum for what's useful and what isn't, especially if it's in our subject area of specialization. When discussing the absence of middle school honors classes in ILC Apex content, Dustin Seaman literally stated that the reason it's not included in Apex is virtually, quote, no other school districts have this level of coursework, end of quote. We are unique and cannot subject our students to generic watered down curriculum. The aspect is evidence that for years, the professionalism, expertise, skill, and experience of the BHUSD teachers has been preparing our students and meeting their scholastic needs because of our individuality and not generic approach to our content. As for the high school, the situation is the same. Using ILC Apex removes specific rigorous course choices unique to Beverly Hills High School, which are necessary for college applications. The damage done is only offering this prepackaged content is twofold. You don't provide the rigor for the middle school students in honors classes as they move up to high school, and you remove the variety of courses or classes and electives available to our high school students, which are needed in college acceptance. Is that it? Time?
Time, I apologize.
Okay. Mr. Fetterman and everyone else, if we don't get through your letters, they will be entered into the record. Okay, the next letter, I recognize that there is no good options for the fall, but it is simply concerning that the fall virtual offering through the ILC does not offer instruction in electives such as music, art, makerspace, physical education, etc. This is a core part of the education provided to our children, and I am eager to hear about efforts underway to make the ILC offering more robust, interactive, and comprehensive. And this comes from Rachel Ellenport. The next one, wait, was number 5 read? I think it was. Can't see you guys. Was number 5 read? Yes.
Yes, I have 5.
Thank you. That concludes public reading. I'm going to defer now back to Mrs. Marcus because I understand she's got one more.
Thank you. This letter is from a teacher, and I'm sure it'll exceed 3 minutes, and please cut me off, Rebecca, when it's finished, please, okay? All right, this letter, my name is Katie Kessel, and I teach English at the high school. A friend and a colleague suggested I reach out to you to have clarification regarding APEX. She says, 1, will all teachers, hybrid and ILC, be teaching with APEX? 2, can teachers be given access to APEX now so we can start working in the system during our summer? I know how many teachers hold their summer break sacred, but with 2 little kids at home, I can work slowly through the summer during my kids' nap times to build my curriculum for the coming year. I've heard that teachers can modify APEX. Does this mean there are more curriculum options for us to choose from other than what is outlined on the APEX? I've taught 9th and 10 honors and regular 11 and 12 at the high school. When I reviewed the English syllabi for the grade level on APEX, it realized the curriculum on APEX is vastly different from what we currently teach at the high school. This will result in a great deal of extra work for English teachers to familiarize themselves with so many new pieces of reading, novels, plays, short stories, poems, nonfiction, etc., because very few were aligned with the current selections at the high school. Will there be extra pay for the time to accommodate these extra hours? Will we be using 3 platforms in the fall, Aries, Google Classroom, and APEX? I understand the benefits of a program in terms of a ready-made curriculum that is aligned with standards and will theoretically create consistency from teacher to teacher for the same class and level. Horizontal and vertical alignment is something I'm passionate about. At the wrap of the school, I was chatting with a few members of the English department about what home learning 3.0 would look like. I envision maintaining our current curriculum and identifying common power standards to focus on for each grade level, and then working together to create common assessments for these standards that can be used by all the English teachers this coming semester. While yes, this may require extra week, it will result in a new and original assessments that are in line with one current curriculum and the vertical alignment our department is working hard for in the past years. When I first set out to find the APEX curriculum, I stumbled upon a myriad of websites and videos dedicated to providing the questions and answers to all the assessment materials. I've been attending webinars to improve my online teaching since this began in March. And time again, teachers are informed that academic dishonesty goes hand in hand and that we need to try to emphasize the importance of academic integrity. I do agree with this and try to mentor my students about this. I fear our teaching staff, none, is that 3 minutes? No, I feel our teaching staff provides rigor and challenges our students to achieve goals far greater than APEX. When we finally do return to more traditional schooling and leave APEX behind, I'm worried that students and parents will experience a bit of a report card shock because cheating will be more difficult to pull off in person and the bar will once again be lifted to the high standards.
3 minutes. Thank you.
This was from...
Okay, and then I have another letter from Mrs. Hendon, Kelly Hendon, so I will now read that. I am writing in support of the consideration of a return of virtual learning platform for fall 2020. I have 3 children, 2 in elementary and 1 in middle school. Overall, we found that home learning was mostly successful for our children. We think that there can be improvements in training to make it robust and successful. Considering the numbers in LA and the need to protect those around us, we would like the district and the board to consider spending this time developing home learning 3.0. We want our children to be taught by BHUSD teachers using their curriculum. We want our children to benefit from the specials at the elementary level and the choice of electives and accelerated classes in the middle school. we should not rush to return to physical education to be only shut down, or to find that all requirements for safety cannot be adequately met within our facilities as they exist now. We do want our children to return to physical school when it is safe to do so. Please reconsider a plan for virtual learning and take your time planning a return to school when more is known about COVID and how to adapt to it in a school setting. This is again from Kelly Hinden. Okay, and that concludes public comment. And so again, I want to thank all of you for being part of today's discussion. Again, for those of you joining from home, welcome to the July 7th study session on the fall options for 2020. Dr. Breggy, I believe you want to introduce someone who's new to our school family, and I'm going to give you the floor now.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very excited to be able to introduce to you virtually our new Assistant Superintendent for Personnel Services, Dr. Matthew Horvath. If you can see him on your screen, there he is. Dr. Horvath comes to us from Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified School District, where he was in the same position as Assistant Superintendent for HR. So he comes to us with experience, and he has already jumped in with both feet, and we're keeping him very busy already. So a special welcome to you, Dr. Horvath. Thank you so much for joining our team.
Thanks, Dr.
Welcome.
Breggy.
Okay, so Dr. Breggy.
Great, thank you. So let me move right on to the work at hand. Hang on one second. It is locking me out. Dustin, can you put yours up? It's locking me out here. Wait.
Dr. Breggy, I'm able to do so.
Thank you, because it's for some reason it's not letting me open. Thank you. Great, and you can just jump to the next slide. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us today. The purpose of this meeting is ongoing dialogue. As you can see by some of the public comments and some of the things that you're hearing out in the community, it's really important that we continue this ongoing dialogue and conversation. The other purpose of the meeting was that we were waiting for the LA County Department of Public Health order, which there is a current order that's in place, but there was a specific order that was for reopening of school districts in LA County. And as I've mentioned before, it's been almost 4 weeks since the superintendents in LA County had reviewed this new order that's specific to our reopening, and we've been waiting ever since. We were told that this information would be made available at the very latest. It would be before the July 4th holiday, which is come and gone. There's a lot of speculation behind why that document is not released, which includes the governor looking at a new bill. There's also the spike in cases in LA County. And so there's a lot of speculation why we haven't seen this final document. But I must say publicly that it's very disappointing. This keeps us up at night because this order by the county is really what we need to do our fine tuning and our planning for the rest of the summer. And as you know, we have a lot of work to do. And without this direction, it in some ways makes our work sometimes counterproductive when we don't have this information, because things could change in either direction, and we really need it. So there is today, during our meeting, there is a teleconference today for school districts, and so we have that covered. Ms. Starkins will beyond that call for the district, which is at 4 o'clock. But I don't anticipate any really new information. We're waiting for this public health order and not just a phone call with updates. So we're still waiting for that information. I know everyone is, and I just want to make it really clear that we've voiced our concerns as a school district that we need that information to do our planning, and I do it every day. I send a message to the LA County Superintendent. So the MOU, and I know that there's a lot of conversation about the fact that there's some details that are missing, and there certainly is. I mean, this is certainly different from the Home Learning Plan and Home Learning Plan 2.0, which really was created within a week to 10 days over a spring break period. We have the time to plan, and we have the time to continue working with our teachers. And so anytime there's a change in working conditions, the union and the administration will get together, and the MOU is a memorandum of understanding, so that there's an agreement about how to move forward in certain areas. And so we look forward to meeting with BHEA starting tomorrow. And a lot of those conversations will take place about many of the details that people are wanting to know that we just don't have right now. We have a lot of communication that's going out, and a lot of information. So we have frequently asked questions. That information is our website there has that information, bhusd.org/return-to-learn/. And I just want to point out, before we do some reviewing and then get the discussion going, is that the school districts across the country are dealing with this same thing that we're dealing with. And so I know that sometimes, we get really fixated on what's most important to us, which is, of course, what we want people to do. But I want people to just take a step back for a second and look to see what's happening around us. And I'm not asking you to necessarily compare us to other people, but we are in the biggest challenge in 100 years in education right now. We all are, and we're all in it together, and we're all having to try to figure out what's the best way forward. But I can tell you that the options going forward to solve and come up with a resolution are very limited. And so if you do look around just to see what's going on in our district, are we so far out of the realm of what we're doing, with other people? And so I ask that you just take into consideration that we have a path forward, and it's very much the same path that every other school district in the country has. And so we're looking at 3 different ways forward. And the traditional physical school is something that we're ready for. We've been planning for this since January. We have master schedules for next year. We know where teachers are going to go. We know what courses we're offering. We know what our enrollment is. And if the world began spinning again, so to speak, we would have all the kids come back, and they would go all in their places, and we would have a wonderful, successful school year. And that's what I have by traditional there. That's the physical school. That's what we would normally expect for this time of year. Unfortunately, that's not an option for us. So we did get some criticism about, why is that not an option? Why is that not on there? Other school districts are offering that. And I'm here to tell you that in LA County, they're not offering that. Everyone right now is trying to look to see what people are interested in. But I can share with you that it's not, with the health order that we have in LA County, we just can't allow people to go back to 25 or 30 in a classroom. And no school district in LA County is going to be able to do that right now. We would love nothing more than to, after everything that we've been through, to give our students and staff some sense of normalcy. There's nothing more that we want right now. And unfortunately, our hands are really tied with the LA County order. So the options that we have, again, are very much like everybody else. And we have a virtual option, an all virtual, which is a tall order to take on as far as everything is virtual. And then also our hybrid model. And this is something that, again, is going to look a little bit different in every school district. And we're looking to work that out with our school BHEA and in our other partners that we're working with and our other unions, because it's really important that we work on these details together. So that's all happening tomorrow. And I know that it's frustrating for some people that we don't have all of those details, but we don't have this plan written. So stay tuned with us and we'll give you updates on where we are in that process. So we have a lot of communication that's happening. I'm really proud of a group that we put together with some staff members and some community members, and it's a think tank, and it has experts in their field. And we've broken up into some small groups, and we're going to come back and do some reporting next week. But we have a mental health, social emotional health group. We have a medical occupational safety, more workplace controls group. And then we're looking at community programs, extracurricular, because those are starting to open up a little bit at this time. And so this group of experts has been really great. And a lot of the questions that we're getting expert opinions on. And so when somebody is frustrated that we're not able to answer right now exactly what the name of the products that we are using to clean and to sanitize and disinfect, we don't have that right now. But I can assure you that when the public health order comes out, not only will we meet, but we will exceed all of these guidelines. And it's going to be very prescriptive on what we can use, when we can do it, how we can do it, but we will share all of that information with you. There's so many things that are coming at us right now. We are working on that and we will share that information. You have absolute right to know how we're going to be looking operationally. We are starting to look at our schools and working with some of our experts to see what a classroom would look like with social distancing. We're looking to see what other measures would need to take place. What would it be like for a student to come into a school and then walk to their classroom? So we're already starting to do some of those mock setups because there's nothing more important to us than the safety of our students and staff. There's nothing. You can't get anything else unless you have the safety. And that is our priority. And we're doing mock-ups and we're going to do walkthroughs and we're getting expert opinions on what we're doing. The fortunate thing about this crisis right now is that we do have this summertime so that we can do this planning, so that we can do mock-up settings, that we can get feedback and input from experts. And it's been more than eye-opening. And we're very excited that we have this team of people in our own backyard that are willing to volunteer their time and to help us. A lot of communication that's going out, and I realize that for some people it feels like it's one step forward and two steps back. And I got to tell you, it does feel like that many times, especially without having this health order in our hands. But we are doing the best that we can to get back to you. We have an extensive and comprehensive FAQ list. We are doing video communication. We are meeting and having our virtual coffees, which have been very good. And we are learning a lot from our parents in these virtual meetings that we're having. And then we're doing the best that we can to stay on top of the many emails that we are receiving. And next slide. And that's Wade.
Thank you, Dr. Brady. This information was shared with the board a couple of weeks ago, and it really hasn't changed. There's just one update. As I mentioned earlier, we're required by law to share some of these funds with our local private schools. In the past, it was based on the free and reduced students at those private schools. A couple of weeks ago, the federal government said it would be based on the total population. Well, just this week, the state of California, Maine, New Mexico, Wisconsin, Michigan, and the District of Columbia sued the federal government and said the distribution of private school funds should be based on free and reduced students. So we at this time don't know how much of these funds will go to our local private schools. So we will keep you posted. But the total amount has remained the same since we adopted the budget a couple of weeks ago.
So that jumps into myself. For option one, obviously this is something that we had discussed, and there are, whether there be concerns around the total list of offerings, the elective courses offering, what everyone needs to totally understand is we are basically trying to launch into almost 7 different schools come fall of 2020. So not only would you have the Independent Learning Center at the elementary level, which would be School 1, the middle school level, which would be School 2, the high school level, School 3, in addition to still running Horace Mann, Hawthorne, BVMS, and BHHS in the hybrid model. So when anybody is concerned about whether or not we have enough staff to be able to teach all the electives in all the course levels, you have to understand that it's moving then FTE into a certain direction. So to actually offer a full virtual learning opportunity, you have to have curriculum to be able to support that independent learning center teacher to be able to meet the needs, the multiple needs of each individual student. It's not as simple as just creating Home Learning Plan 3.0 alongside having a hybrid model. We have 273 teachers across the district that support that hybrid model. We're projected anywhere, when you see the current totals, there's 304 students about an hour ago enrolled into the Independent Learning Center. There's 122 that are in the high school, 73 in the middle school, and 109 in the elementary. We will have to, after the 15th deadline, start to allocate teachers to those positions. And again, reminding ourselves that it's basically running 7 schools simultaneously at the start of fall of 2020. So then obviously option 2 is the exact same thing from the previous study session with the week A, week B, 50% on campus with the rotating cohort, with the hopes of being able to support those students at home utilizing the ViewBoard software on the student devices. I'm going to jump back to just the considerations around the option 2. Some of them from the previous study session have been minimized. So one of the things is we are launching into professional development to support this hybrid model for our teachers. Even today, I sent out communication for Apex training, Gold Book training, and professional development around utilizing my ViewBoard. Also, we are starting tomorrow into that communication with our union, starting the MOU negotiations around what about a second wave of closures and those types of items. Outside of the fact that we need to start venturing into some of the conversations you had heard during public comment of engaging our teachers in those grade level articulations and even in those department meetings. So once they've seen the Apex curriculum and actually logged in as themselves, now what? How do we leverage their expertise to make sure that this is rigorous for our students in BHUSD and that we are able to hold that high caliber of education that we all demand, not only Administration Board of Education, and we obviously heard from our parents and our teachers earlier. So those are the steps that are ahead of us. And like Dr. Breggy alluded earlier, was some of the things had to wait till after July 1st when we cycled through our new funding accounts to be able to purchase professional development and start to create opportunities. You'll see in a moment, one of the timelines for professional development includes work on Google Classroom, G Suite, utilization of CAMI. And those are the things that I'm working with the I4 coaches and David D'Amico on creating those opportunities that the staff are asking for. And they'll see more communication coming down the road. Okay,
So I'm going to jump in and talk a little bit about how this will roll out for special education. I know some of our board members as well as parents have questions about this and have contacted me. As we move forward, there have been several assembly bills that talk about virtual instruction, that talk about the requirement to continue to provide special education. The most recent one was AB 77. And if you see there, it talks about homeless students, foster youth students, and students with disabilities. And the mandate is that we continue to provide special education services, which we have done throughout home learning and home learning 2.0, and we will continue to do through our ILC model and the hybrid model. One thing that I wanted to discuss with the group today is just kind of the breakdown of how our special education students are distributed across the continuum of service options in the district, in Beverly Hills Unified School District. If you look at the grid to your right, we have a resource students who make up approximately 58% or almost 60% of our special education students. Those students spend the majority of their day in general education. Then you have the 22% who spend most of their day in a special day class, which is mostly special education, but they do go sometimes to English or math or art or specials in general education. So we have between 70 to 80% of our students who receive special education and related services in BHUSD that spend the majority of their day in general education. So what that means is that they will be receiving, in both models, they will receive their instruction from their general education teacher via Apex or in the blended model from their teacher in person. The students who receive special education services or instruction from their special education teacher for the majority of the day, they can use Apex. And we are continuing with Edgenuity. The contract will be coming to the board for renewal on the 14th, but that will be for our students who cannot access Apex. Dustin and I have been working together, and there were some teachers who used, special education teachers who used Apex over the summer. You can modify the courses to address students' goals and objectives and to change the level of instruction in the courses to meet a student's needs. So we have the ability to modify what's happening in the Apex software to meet the needs of our students. But in addition to that instruction that they receive from their general education teacher, students will also receive the mandated minutes and instruction as listed on their IEP from their special education teachers at a time that is different than their instruction that they're receiving from their general education teacher. Additionally, they will receive their related services such as speech, counseling, occupational therapy, etc., at a different time so that they have a complete program. So it will work in tandem with what's happening either in the ILC or the hybrid model. Next slide.
Yep. So one of the things that we talked about earlier is one of the questions around just the professional development for teachers. Again, I'm going to bring this back a little bit just to give some history. Is when we entered into home learning, Title II funding is our professional development funds for the district. We made a conscious decision to be able to deplete those funds at the start of home learning to get our staff across the whole district geared up and ready to venture into home learning. Now that as of July 1st, those funds replenish again at a smaller percentage due to, like Mr. Roach had alluded to earlier, but now we are able to now reinvest those Title II funds for the 2021 school year into the months of July and August. So you'll see here that there are some dates already set to be able to provide opportunities for our middle school, high school, and elementary teachers to not only start to work inside Goldbook, Apex, My View Board. In addition to, you'll see that the G Suite trainings, as of even this morning, the I4 coaches had created a more comprehensive timeline for professional development that will be communicated out to teachers maybe as early as this evening with the Google Classroom support and those things that we did leverage during Home Learning Plan 2.0.
And just kind of as a timeline, you know, we really have done what we can up to now. And so, you know, staying up to date every day with all of the safety concerns that are happening all over the county, and then also trying to put into place some protocols based on what we're hearing from experts. So we are getting closer and closer to making some decisions in that area. And I just want people to keep in mind too that you know, while all of this is going on, we're also looking at then how do we handle students and staff, you know, on campus and those protocols, and looking at, you know, is there going to be COVID-19 testing? Is there going to be temperatures? How do we handle a student or staff member that becomes positive with COVID-19? How does that impact then cohorts around them and where they've been? There is so much that's going on besides the instructional piece that I just want you to know that we are working tirelessly on the safety protocols, because we don't want to just check a box. We don't want to say, well, we did that. We want to ensure that we are meeting and exceeding all expectations that are going to be coming in from LA County. Kind of what's in bold there. We're looking forward to our collaboration beginning with BHEA tomorrow. And then we're doing a lot of reviewing with the facilities. As I mentioned, we're talking with M&O, and we're actually putting together the mock classrooms and doing walkthroughs to begin to look to see what this is like. And again, we're working with people that are outside of our own field that have done this in the past. Just recently, they've changed environments and workplace controls that are now considered to be COVID-19 compliant. Those are the people that we're talking to. Those are the experts that we want to be partners with, and not just taking something from a checklist. Consulting with the operations staff and looking at what the school day looks like and what transitions look like. All of those things are in progress, and we are looking at them. And so many of the questions we're getting very close to answering with our experts, and we will release that information to you very shortly. And I do want to take an opportunity to thank our think tank participants, because the volunteer hours that they are putting in is just, it's heartwarming to know that they care so much, and many of them do not have children in our schools, and they're still willing to donate this time. The training piece is a really big piece, which is, as Dustin mentioned, there's some information that's come out today. We want our teachers to have the training they need and the resources that they need to do this. We have the gift of a bit of time that we didn't have on the first bit of the pandemic coming in. And so we do want to utilize this time wisely, but we also want to be, you know, very collaborative about how we move forward, when we move forward, working together. So a lot of that will be taking place next week, and I look forward to reporting that back out to you very soon. So I'm happy to open this up for questions, comments, and the entire cabinet is, you can jump in, anybody that's online.
Okay, Dr. Berge, so just to be clear, did you want the board to have questions or at this moment, or who are you? Is Dustin done presenting?
Yes. So we're this is, again, the purpose of this meeting is to provide you with, you know, this is an ongoing conversation. There's an update with some additional information that's being presented to you through what we shared tonight. And just to get a pulse of if you have ongoing questions or you know, any direction going forward as we continue to work on our options.
Very well, thank you for that clarification. So what I'll do at this moment is I'll start going around, and we will begin with, you know, we're going to start the other way today. We're going to start with Mrs. Marcus. And then we'll work our way. I'll be the last person to go. Mrs. Marcus, the floor is yours.
Okay, I have a lot of comments and a lot of questions, and I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the difference between what the 2.0 or what could be a 3.0, which is the distance learning, as opposed to the ILC or the APEX proposal. When we went into the problem in March, when we had to shut down the school and everybody had to move to distance learning, it was the teachers caught very much off guard. They needed special training, and they had to work from their own framework of teaching and so on. Many of them did an unbelievable job right off the bat. Some of them sort of got in the feel of it as they went along, and some of them really, to the very end, still struggled a little bit. But nonetheless, I believe that if our teachers had had more training and had been better prepared, which they can be right now, that we were throwing the baby out with the bathwater in that program. I honestly believe that today from what I'm hearing. The ILC was originally adopted many years ago to address students that couldn't attend school for one reason or another. They had special acting and so on and so forth. And it was in the last year that APEX was thrown in as the curriculum for it. And I have very strong feelings. I'm not sure how much, but I don't know. I'm hearing from, you have to understand, as a former teacher in the district, every now and then teachers will reach out to me. Now, there are not too many teachers left in the district from my days in school because it was so long ago, or not so long ago, but I was there for so long. So many teachers are gone, but there's so many teachers that I still know that have reached out to me, and they have absolutely, they just felt very disturbed by this APEX and the fact that they don't feel that it is a very rigorous program and that they will have to teach by a prescribed program, and they're very upset with it. And I have to listen to the teachers because they are the educators, and I feel that they're just as important as the people that are issuing the comments, or the people that are making the decisions. So I wonder how much the teachers had to do with that. I've been saying that over and over and over. Every time we bring up an issue, I bring up the issue. How much did the teachers have to say about this? And you know that I've made that a big issue every time. So then this one question comes up. The teachers who are teaching in the hybrid, should we be able to do it? Will they be able, are they going to be teaching their regular curriculum and so on? And then the people in the ILC will be teaching this APEX program. So what happens if all of a sudden we have to close up shop with the hybrid, and the teachers who are doing hybrid have to move to ILC, and they are all on different wavelengths? So that would be another question that I have to have answered. I just don't feel that when they come back together that they will be in the same, they will be on the same wavelength. The main thing that I'm hearing is that there's a strong feeling that APEX is not the rigorous program that our students need and that what we're used to. And I have to hear these comments, and I have to take heed of them, because I don't know what else to do, because I'm hearing them. And I'm hearing them from people who have taught with it, not just from people in the community. I'm hearing it from teachers who have actually witnessed it and have found it to be less than ideal for our school district. I had one more comment. Why is it not possible then to have within the virtual, have the 3.0 for teachers to use if they want also, so we could have another option for them? Because I don't understand why they have to be dictated. We have teachers that have a tremendous curriculum, teach wonderful classes, and now they have to return to something that they're not used to. And I think that that's not fair to them, especially when you're looking at some of our very strong teachers who did do an outstanding job under 2.0 and could do so under 3.0. And the other thing I think is the fact that the APEX is a prescribed curriculum taught digitally. It's like press a button and you teach that this day. And I don't know how much communication our teachers totally are going to have with these people. And that bothers me. So why do we need the teacher? That if they have the program all set out and all they have to do is just press a button and it will be on the screen. I am very upset that with this, and I'm just voicing my opinion now so that you can know how I feel about it. And I think I'm finished. Thank you.
One thing I just want to say about, and I just want you to think about the heavy lift that this is. If you look at, all virtual, and you look at, talk about a complete shift for teachers and doing everything virtual. And that's every activity, every test, every quiz, it is a huge lift to go all virtual. And so by having a digital curriculum, it is that's in place, and it's in place all over. I certainly didn't hear any suggestions for another digital curriculum, but it is a fully is it the best? Does it compare to what we had when students were coming to school? Of course it doesn't, but it does work for many people that do want an all virtual option. And I do want to just remind people too that within the first 24 hours, we had over 100 people that signed up for this. And we've had really good experience as well. Unfortunately, we don't get a lot of those people that are coming to speak in public comment, but we have a lot of people that have had great success with Apex in the past, where they've actually gone and they've graduated from BHHS taking Apex courses and are doing quite well in the world and attending amazing schools. So I just want to remind everybody that, this is a big, huge lift to go all virtual.
And I'm going to just add, again, I'm going to reference back to the part of my presentation is it's simply math. So as Board of Education members, you have to take into consideration that when asked about creating options for fall, ultimately we had to create a brick and mortar option, which is the hybrid option due to the fact of public health. So our teachers are all slotted to be in the hybrid model. In addition, without additional resources, we have to create a virtual model. So it's either and, it's either or, there's no and here. It's either our teachers teaching in the hybrid model, or we have a teacher assigned to students to deliver a virtual option for the families that do not feel comfortable or due to health concerns cannot return back to the brick and mortar. Unless we have additional full-time equivalency for teachers to support every individual class. And I referenced in study session 1, we have 42 electives at the middle school and 96 singletons at the high school. So you have to break that down by full-time equivalency. Fiscally, we cannot even afford to run 7 full schools. That's kind of the bottom line. In addition to, we have always said that those in the hybrid model, we are granting access to Apex with training to leverage their expertise to utilize and morph in whatever way if we had to leave school again as part of the exit plan. And that's part of what we're going in to the conversation with them around as well. For the Independent Learning Center, you have to have virtual curriculum. Otherwise, how else can we ensure the students are maintaining forward towards grade level standards and or content standards?
Well,
so that's,
let me interrupt 1 second, please. I am concerned then that you have the hybrid that's going to be using the regular curriculum. They may be able to use little Apex or whatever, but they're going to be teaching the way they normally do. Now, if something should happen and they have to go back to the in virtual, you're going to have the teachers who are going to be able to do, they're not going to go back to the Apex. They're going to go back to what it was at 2.0 or maybe create their 3.0. So you have that situation also, because what are you going to do with those? What are you going to do with that curriculum? I think that that's a very, very fair question. I mean, if my daughter or son is in a hybrid and then all of a sudden now has to go back, are you going to expect that child to fill in and that teacher's now going to have to teach Apex so that all of them are on Apex and that they're on two different total wavelengths? You heard the English teacher say that the curriculums are totally different in Apex than they are what she's teaching, what she would do in the hybrid program.
And correct, I'm going to jump in, Dr. Breggy, in stating this. Even back to study session 1, the whole goal was to ensure that we, not only the hybrid teachers, but even the ILC teachers, work collaboratively to ensure that we're pacing and moving at the same rate by the end of semester to not create any educational gaps. We also said that during training, we would access those teachers. Even part of this presentation, it clearly stated that we have to start now setting up professional development this summer for those groups to meet to determine what is the best plan of action in the case we do have to exit. Are they going to leverage as a group and utilize Apex, or will they insert, say, English department, a novel in a certain unit, or in health, replace with EverFi or Mystery Science in the elementary level? And so that's part of the work that's still ahead of us, but without having anything to support us, we also learned, and I'm going to say this out loud in Home Learning Plan 2.0, the inconsistencies that were happening amongst our same department that did collaborate. So without having some sort of canned opportunity for us, we're also selling a ship that is not going to sail. And that's—
Well, we also have an opportunity here for training that we didn't have before. I mean, there's no going about that. That's what I see. But I'm worried about the quality of the Apex to our students, and I'm worried about the rigor of it, and I'm very concerned, and I'm concerned that teachers are reaching out to me and are saying that this is not a strong program. And I understand you may not have any options, but it's just sad that there are no options then in that case.
Okay, I actually, Mrs. Marcus, I just want to, there's just a minute, please, because I want to make sure I got this right. Dustin, anything else, or Dr. Breggy? Because Noah has notified me that he has to leave the meeting within minutes. So I'm gonna, if it's okay with you all, I'm gonna defer over to Noah so he can have his chance, and then when he's completed, we could, when he's finished, we can go to you, Mrs. Walker-Schumann.
Thank you, and thank you, Tristan, for allowing me to take your turn here. I guess I have a lot of things to say. We would not buy a car if somebody just told us, "Hey, here's a magazine. Pick 2 of the cars, and you gotta pick one of them." We would need to test drive the car. We would want to study the car. If we were savvy, we would do this. And I think what has happened is our staff is working really incredibly hard and really well. And I want to say that up front. We put out a couple of options of quote unquote cars to our community, and they're not happy and they want to continue car shopping is what we're hearing. We're getting that feedback. So I'm going to pitch something. I'm just going to pretend this is a straight pitch. When they do movies, or when they used to do movies in the good old days of Hollywood 4 months ago, they would do test screeners. They would get a secret audience, put it together, show them the movie, and get a lot of feedback. And then they'd go back and fix the movie. They'd edit it. I think this is an opportunity for us as a district, while we have the time, to do that correctly. I think I have spoken to people all over the country about what they're doing in their school districts. I've spoken to private schools about what they're doing. Everybody is facing what we're facing. Our challenges are not unique to us. This is on a national level and probably a global level. So I need to preface this by saying that. But the more I hear about the hybrid model, the more I keep kind of snapping back. So here's my pitch, okay? If students can learn on an off week using technology, why can't those same students choose to stay at home and learn from home and still be part of the class. I know I brought this up last time we met, and I don't see the rationale yet to not seriously look at this. There's a couple of things that we can do here. One, it would be much easier to clear the schools if the public health dictates that, right? So you can have a student, the same student that would sign up for Apex that does not want to be back on campus can instead be learning through the view board, through the ViewSonic, and be part of his or her class. I don't see why that hasn't been explored. The second thing is, if we so desire, we can actually put teachers in their classrooms with no students and let them teach virtually and have all of the aspects of their classroom at hand. So they can really teach as if that room was filled with people, except it's safe for the teachers. And we eliminate that risk for both students and teachers by not putting them together. So I want to put that pitch out there, and I want it to be discussed. And I would like my colleagues, when we get around to it, and I'm going to step off in a few minutes, but I hope it continues. I want this to possibly be seriously considered as maybe not even an option, but as the way to go, because there's no reason then for students who feel that I want to be in an honors class or I want to be in an AP class. We eliminate that from those hurdles from the equation. We eliminate the lack of extracurriculars if we're able to manage them like we were in some format at the end of last year. I think it would benefit everybody in that regards. Students would get a classroom experience. Those that don't want to go to school don't have to. Teachers stay safer, and we move on until the county health regulations change. It's my pitch to everybody that I'm looking at on the screen. Kick it around. Do with it what you like, but I think that it's a viable option. It would comply with county health if necessary. It would keep people safe. And I don't know, I was so excited when we saw this demonstration of my view board and we saw how it could be utilized. I'm like, well, this is, it's like the Jetsons going to school. They just show up on the screen and they learn from their screen teacher, and then they did it, and now it's here. That future is here. We can do it. So why is that not something we're considering more seriously? And by the way, I've also asked, I spoke to my cousin who is a professor and an associate dean at Oregon State, who said that they use Apex. And that's Apex in the academic world. Apex, so everybody knows, is about the best there is. So people should understand that before they're just ragging on Apex before you know what it is. I know my daughter took Apex Health this summer through the summer school. Great experience. Nothing negative to say about it. So I just want people to understand, once again, it's like judging the car you didn't drive. Maybe you don't want it, but maybe that car is right for you. So just think about those things. Thank you very much. So my question, then, my simple question to everybody is, would you consider that as one of our options? Because I think when we rolled out with the questionnaire for parents, what we should have asked was, do you want to come back or stay home? As opposed to giving them actual options that they really didn't know much about, because then they got fired up over, well, we don't like this, we don't like that. They don't know. There's nothing to judge that. It's not a quantified or qualified judgment. But they would tell us, parents would tell us, do they feel safe sending their kids back to a campus, physical campus, or not? That's the number I would like to work with, because then that might help dictate and instruct how we move forward with our options. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll stay on for a few minutes and then you'll see me cut off. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Mrs. Hacker and Mrs. Walker-Schuman, for letting me do my tirade now.
Thank you, Noah. Mr. Seaman or Dr. Breggy, did you all want to respond to Noah's comments and proposals, I guess?
So just kind of globally, and I love the analogy, because I think that's a good one, and I think that's a fair one. I think that and I've been in 3 other school districts, and this is such a creative group of teachers, administrators. We have a board that all wants to move together in the same direction, in cabinet. Anything's possible. I know that a lot of the details, the pieces with my view board, and those are the things that have to be worked out through the MOU. We are not in a place to say, like, we know parents, the number one issue, and I think you'd all agree that parents want is that they want 100% standing in front of the camera online instruction. And we know, and as a former teacher, I know that that's not always possible. And so getting into a room with our union to talk about, okay, what did we learn from Home Learning Plan 2.0 and what can we do and what do we expect? I think that we could work through some of those details together. But some of the things that you mentioned, of course, are achievable. But we have to get our union partners in the same room and talk about that.
Okay, Mrs. Walker-Shipman.
Okay, so I'm gonna say I agree with my colleagues who've spoken already, but I'm gonna see your bet, Noah, and I'm gonna raise you one because I don't really think we should go back physically until we have more information. We started this conversation back in March. How do we deliver education in a remote environment, and how do we make it comprehensive? And we had no springboard or runway to really make that plan. It was just a moment, knee-jerk. How do we solve this for the immediate future? Now that we know the pitfalls of 2.0, and I'm going to just say this because I have to be honest about it. I think it was not a stunning success. There were teachers that did a great job. Overall, it was incredibly inconsistent. There were a bunch of teachers that phoned it in. And overall, I think the amount of learning that our kids experienced over that period of time was not comparable to a regular school year. It is what it is. We're in a pandemic, okay? So, but if we're going to have a real conversation about going forward with Home Learning 3.0, we have to address where the weaknesses were. And there are several of them in that plan. There was no required attendance. There was no specific instructional minutes requirement, which I understand now is different. There were lessons like watch this video and then do this homework that didn't really have any face-to-face interactions with the teachers. So, and there was the social emotional piece too between the teachers and the students that was really lacking. So there are a lot of different things we need to address in terms of discussing what went wrong and how to fix it if we're going to do Home Learning 3.0. But just to go back, we don't have the set information yet from LA County Public Health. We are now up against about a little more than 4 weeks to execute all of this for the start of school. And in my view, that is not an adequate period of time to properly train and prepare and plan to execute for the enormous lift that this environment is going to require. So from my perspective, I believe we should, yes, start on August 17th, but do so in an entirely virtual environment. If 3.0 is the way that it seems like the community wants to go, fine, let's marry that with Apex. Let's take the best of both worlds. Let's take the unbelievable talent pool we have in our teachers and resources and put that with Apex for the architectural structure. Put the two together, let the teachers build on Apex, let them add content, let them put it in their own lesson plan kind of flow. But at least that way it's consistent. At least that way we have some form of regular assessments and the teachers can customize it to the way that they want it to be. I think honestly that at this point, if we go ahead and open in a hybrid version right now, we are being penny wise and pound foolish. We are taking a leap when we don't have enough information to make the right choice and to protect the safety of our staff and faculty, our teachers, our administrators, and the students. And I know that everyone's going to argue and say that students aren't carriers, they aren't spreaders, they don't get it, they are carriers. And we're seeing this more now with studies that are coming out every single day. So I am not willing to risk the lives of our families, of our extended, parent and grandparent group that are related to our students. I am not willing to put our teachers on the line. I don't think it's worth it. And if that means we go back 100% virtual starting with August 17th and that we entertain going back in some kind of hybrid way by October 15th, once we know more, once we've seen what we can do, fine. Doesn't necessarily have to be an entire commitment for the whole first semester, but I think that is the way that we should be talking about it. And I think that's the direction that we should be going in. And I know I take a lot of time. I apologize in advance, but I have a very long list of questions.
And they're kind of outside of what I'm saying I think is the best path forward. So hold on, let me just go to my list of questions. Has it been determined, based on the guidelines that we have right now from LA County Public Health, what is the critical mass option for each grade level classroom?
So, and it obviously depends, but I'm going to give you kind of the average classroom is about 10 to 12 students in a classroom. We do have to look at some of the existing furniture that's in some of our classrooms, because some teachers have personal items and couches and, you know, all the thing I had in my classroom, you know, all the flexible seating options and all that. I mean, we really have to take a look at how we can utilize the square feet in each individual classroom. And we are prepared this summer. We have to go into every single classroom and be able to calculate what that is. But it's about 10 to 12 students.
Okay. So, and I really want parents to understand this, because I've gotten a lot of questions about this. Unless you have 24 kids in your class, you cannot equally split up a classroom into halves and still have only 12 students. So what that means is any class where there's 25 or more, that is not going to only be divided into two. That means we'd have to consider having a third cohort, which would reduce the number of instructional days each cohort actually has. And that's what happens if we don't have a large group of people participating in the ILC and we insist on going forward with the hybrid model. It's not going to be a 50-50. We've got way too many classes, particularly at the high school, that have over 24 kids in a class. So I just want to put that out there. I also want to say I also have talked to a lot of teachers, not only that have reached out to me, but that I've reached out to ask for feedback. The K-12 plan, the TK5 plan has to be different than the 6-12 plan. There are different needs for those different grade levels, and not just from an academic standpoint, but from a social emotional standpoint. In my view, I think that those kids need more socialization. I absolutely do. I think our middle schoolers and high schoolers can manage with a lesser degree, but I really believe that for the TK5, the conversation has to be different in terms of how we go forward. What's really important is that we are not going to be able to deliver for everybody everything they want. Whatever it is we come up with is going to disappoint and make people angry. I'm okay with that. I recognize that. But you cannot make a plan that delivers the number one priority as education, and the number one priority as socialization, and the number one priority as safety. And we need to decide which order we want to put those things. In my view, safety and education are the first two. Socialization has to come in third, in my view. So when talking to the primary grade teachers, when we talk about what does a day look like in a primary classroom, let's say a kindergarten classroom in a hybrid model, the teachers are spending their time like herding pigeons, shepherding the kids. They can't touch each other. They can't hug each other. They can't share toys. They have to wash their hands. They have to stay apart. There's going to be very little education that's happening in these classrooms because the teachers are spending so much time trying to keep the kids socially distanced. When you add on top of that the interactivity of a ViewSonic, where half the class is at home. So not only do they have to manage the kids in the classroom, but also the kids that are interacting virtually. It's a next to impossible task, in my view. I think what ends up happening in that environment is it becomes really more of a glorified babysitting environment, not an educational one. And if our priority is to give these kids education in the safest way, that's not the way to do it. So I think we need to talk about other options. I know for younger kids, especially, it's hard to stay home. It's hard for the parents in all grade levels to be their primary teacher when their kids are doing at-home learning. But I think it is our responsibility to look at that and examine it as a real option. In my opinion, the only way that home learning 3.0 works is if we are live streaming classes. Period, full stop. There is just no way to make what we did with home learning 2.0 function as a fully rigorous education like we're talking about doing without having those classes live streamed. So that's going to be up for negotiation with the teachers union, and we're going to have to see where we land on things like that. But what I'm hearing is that there are a lot of teachers out there that are willing to go down this path to be able to be in their classrooms with all of their stuff and to be able to teach with their whiteboard, blackboard, manipulatives, whatever else they need while their students are at home that they can interact with. I think that is going to be the critical piece to success if we're going to be able to move forward with this plan. That's my viewpoint. I think the silver lining in this, and I always try to look for the silver lining, is that we as a culture, as a society, have become very driven on assessments. And we've talked so many times about why that doesn't always work, because you're not really testing kids' deep understanding of the content. What you're testing is their ability to memorize it. So when we're in this environment where we can't proctor tests, maybe we need to pivot our focus on really creating and testing understanding, not through your regular metrics of tests, but maybe we have to have it more in terms of oral discussion. And maybe we need to have it more in terms of creating a presentation where you narrate your understanding of a topic. Or maybe it needs to be more heavy on essay writing, and that can be our focus right now because of this different environment. Those are all things we should be considering and trying to determine how we're gonna go forward with this. I have a list of like 20 questions, and they're not really related to what it is that I'm saying about home learning 3.0, but these are questions that parents are asking and I think that are really important to get answers to. So I'm just going to kind of rapid fire them, and whoever can answer them, if you don't mind giving that answer, and then I'll just move on in the interest of time. Do both ILC and hybrid model conform to mandatory instructional minutes?
Yes.
Okay. I believe this has been asked and answered, but will sports be offered? We don't know yet, right?
So, I mean, right now they're allowing, CIF has come up with, you're allowed to start doing skill building, but no real playtime. And so, but what we're waiting for is that public health order, because CIF is putting guidelines together and we're reading them, and Tim and I meet every single day to go over them. But the public health order is kind of is the law over what CIF guidelines are, because CIF is dictating to places in Orange County, and where it's a different environment and a different health order is in place. So they will open as we can open them.
I will tell you that the Orange County school districts had opened up summer camps yesterday, and 95% of them shut them down by the end of the day, and the rest are shut down today. So they started opening, and then they closed them all down. Santa Margarita and I think J. Sarah, the two of the big private schools in Orange County, started their camps, shut them down as well. So everybody's kind of had started their camps and are closing them down. So
yeah. So my understanding is, I was on the CIF call, I think it was last week. What that looks like is that your kids can get together and basically do calisthenics, but they can't touch each other, and they can't high five, and they can't share balls. They basically can go and do a workout that they could do in their bedroom or living room, but 6 feet away from their other kids. So
no more than groups of 10 either. Start with the first phase. You can only have 10 people there, one coach. Yeah. Like you said, no sharing of this or that. And the workouts are limited down to about 20 minutes at the most. And then go home and change your clothes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we covered that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let's see. One of the questions that I've been asked, I think it's a great option, is if we take classes outside of BHUSD, can that be given credit for PE? Things like dance classes. I know a bunch of studios are opening there. These retail establishments have different requirements than we do as a school district. So if a student takes martial arts or takes dance or something like that, is there a way that they can get PE credit instead of requiring that to be something that they have to attend, whatever form of we go forward with, virtual, hybrid, whatever?
So in our district, we do a really great job of protecting and not only enforcing our physical education minutes across the whole district. For the 2021 school year, physical education minutes are waived under Trailer Bill 77. However, we are still continually preparing to teach physical education here on our campuses in our hybrid model. So we would not be in a position, due to a PE waiver or anything like that, to accept those external credits. We are offering physical education in the hybrid model.
Okay. But is that something that would be considered if we don't go back, if we end up doing a 3.0 where everyone is staying at home, would that be able to count against minutes?
If we're moving into a 3.0, that would be something we would work with our physical education teachers on, creating an opportunity that would be virtual for all of our students to still be able to engage in learning, either whether it be regulations, rules around badminton and then around beach volleyball and then stuff like that. We would look for a very creative way to be able to ensure really keep consistency of program.
Okay.
And I also just want to throw in there that too, like I also don't want to lose track of where we're going. We are not looking to change and turn upside down the district and the way that we're delivering instruction. We're all working so hard to provide the very best opportunity for now. So I know that people get nervous when they start, they keep thinking like this is their way to move in this or drive this. Honestly, there's nothing to do with that at all, other than what can we do in this moment to provide the very best opportunity for our kids. We are not looking to change and revolutionize everything we're doing to get in. And I get that trust is always an issue, but there's nobody that is trying to push an agenda here other than we just want to provide what's best for now.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you for that. Hold on just one sec. I'm trying to move things over so I can see my Google Doc. Okay, so my the next question is, this one I also believe has been asked and answered, but I just want to put it out there. Why does Friday need to be a student-free day for the hybrid model? Can we consider it a half day to allow for more instruction?
So, I mean, we can work with just about any parameter, but it makes it difficult to when you don't have that day, because somebody is not going to get the same amount of time. It's shifting. It doesn't work as easy as it does at the elementary and primary grades, because you have a little bit more, it's malleable. Like at the high school level, you're going to then have a hard time keeping consistent with the minutes that are offered for each of our classes.
Mm-hmm. And then the other piece of that is that we have a contract with our bargaining unit that we'd have to renegotiate, because we don't right now. I mean, well, actually, let me ask you this and you can tell me, do we have our cleaning staff working on the weekend right now?
So we do have staff working throughout the week and weekend.
And the whole weekend. Would they be able to actually complete the sanitization and the cleaning that needs to be done with less time frame, according to the guidelines as we believe they were, as we know they were like a month ago?
So I just met with Ken today for a long time, and we're now starting to develop because we don't have the health order, is kind of, we're trying to get into place what the need would be. And so we're starting to look at staffing, because it looks like we may have to increase staffing in our custodial area to be able to do this, because we cannot ask our teachers or our students to clean up their own area. Like just the risk that would add is, we just don't want to go there. And so the additional staff, the additional, like how that would look is really complex. But we're starting to look at that now, but we just had a discussion today, and we're going to need some additional staff.
Okay. So let's see. What next? Accountability mechanisms. In my view, this is one of the parts where 2.0 fell apart. We had parents that were complaining that teachers weren't showing up for their Zoom meetings, or moving Zoom meetings, or not doing any face-to-face instruction. And I got in trouble. I got heat for telling parents, hey, if that's not happening, go and raise this to your AP or your principal, or first to your teacher and say, hey, why isn't this happening? And parents did all three of those things. They asked their teachers that they weren't getting those face-to-face time instruction with, and they brought it to their APs, and they brought it to their principals. And the teachers that were asked pushed back and said, I don't have to, so I'm not going to. Some of the APs and principals said, well, we're leaving it, it's not exactly live instruction, but they can do a video on Khan Academy. If this is the way we're going to go forward, and this is as much to my colleagues and the parents as it is right now for the union, if we're going to go forward with this has to have meaning and teeth. It cannot be that we just write an MOU for the sake of writing an MOU, and as soon as the ink is dry, everyone just does a free-for-all, whatever they feel like. There has to be some accountability here. And when parents start to complain about not getting the minutes, about not getting the face-to-face time, that has to be responded to and taken seriously. Otherwise, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? If we're trying to make it a priority for the kids to get their needs met, that literally has to be the priority. And it's not just about goodwill and making promises, but this really has to be delivered on. And that, in my view, is one of the things that really was difficult with 2.0. There were teachers that did a spectacular job with it. There were also teachers that really didn't. And the ones that didn't, that we knew about, we didn't do enough to fix before the end of the school year.
So, and let me comment on that, because I think that we're in a different place now, not just based on what we've learned, but I also want to take everybody back a little bit, because it was so different back in March and working on the MOU, because I mean, many school districts never even finished getting an MOU by the time the school year was over. So, you know, and it was one of those things, there was so much back and forth with, you know, are we closing? Are we opening? So there was so much back and forth that it was very difficult. I think that going into this MOU we have to set a different tone, because this is for the long term. So we have to, this isn't just a few weeks or a month, or by the time we got into it, people were starting to look at, the back of the June 1st and looking at, well, we're almost finished anyway. I think because it's so unpredictable going forward, that I think that there just needs to be a different mindset going into this MOU than the one previously.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I want to make sure that it's not just for the sake of writing, that's something that we agree to on paper. I think it needs to be in practice. I really do. And I have to tell you, honestly, I think the teachers want this. I think there were so many teachers that felt that the second semester of this past school year was a wash, that they really are hungry to say, wait a minute, we can do this better. We can deliver more. We just need to be able to, take the reins off and really be able to make this our own. And I really want to give them the ability to do that. Okay, so I have some specific curriculum questions about ILC. If a student takes a course that's not available through the ILC at Beverly, like in the hybrid model, hypothetically, can they enroll at BHUSD? Okay, no, wait, hold on. Oh, through an outside platform, can they enroll in BHUSD for the spring semester? So if a family wants to commit to ILC but wants their kid to take AP Physics, but AP Physics is not offered, can you do one semester at like Laurel Springs or Method or NUVHS, and then still, when we go back to school in January, enroll in AP Physics second semester at Beverly?
Absolutely. Per board policy, we can accept up to 40 credits external from any vendor that's accredited. So if a family chooses to take the first semester of a course externally, by board policy, we would accept that and transcript that course.
Okay, but even if it's for one semester, and then they'd be able to join for second semester?
Correct.
Okay. Is ninth grade honors history a prerequisite for 10th grade AP Euro?
It is not an isolated prereq. So a student can be recommended or take AP Euro history. It's recommended as an incoming 8th grader to take the honors 9th grade world history to lead into the Euro history, but by no means would we win that fight in litigation. I'm just saying this out loud, that they have the right to be able to have access to that AP course.
Okay, because Apex doesn't offer the honors world history for freshmen. So essentially what you're saying is for families with kids that know they want to take AP Euro sophomore year, they still can do that by taking world history, doing well in that class through Apex or whatever, and they'd still not have their path really change.
Right.
Okay.
Correct. Let's see, middle school. If we're not offering honors English, science, and social studies, is there an enrichment that will be offered to ILC students who would have been qualified to take those honors classes at the middle school?
So one of the things that we are battling around still to this day is trying to ensure, again, rigor and to make sure advancement. So as we start to identify the students that are enrolled into the Independent Learning Center for the middle school primarily, and we start to see that it is not rigorous enough, are we able to try to create a multiple student tutoring seminar for those students to try to increase at least the conversation around honors globally. What does it mean to be an honors student? What are those study skills for those students? So it is something that Dr. Breggy, the cabinet, we're beating around every single day, trying to find the best solution to meet those needs of those students that are going to have to maybe or choose to enroll in the ILC in the middle school.
Okay.
Again, it comes back to, total enrollment and the right people on the bus of who are those staff members supporting those middle school students, and are they qualified and capable to be able to lead that seminar conversation with students.
Okay, but just so that we're clear, if we were to do a 3.0 model where the teachers went to the classrooms and the students stayed home, we would be able to have all of those middle school honors classes still offered.
I apologize. Repeat one more time. I cut in and out.
Instead of just Apex and hybrid model, if we were to marry the two and begin the school year in a 3.0 home learning model, we would still be able to offer all of the honors classes in the middle school for science, social studies, English, and math.
Correct. If we were to marry them both, the child would look exactly like you described, where we would be able to launch, because we also have to take in consideration, if we were to marry those two, we have a lot of work to do still in performance-based coursework. Right. So no programs offering culinary arts, so we need to work to ensure that those kids can still do those things if we weren't able to return back in the hybrid model.
Okay. Let's see. Does the high
May I just jump in for clarification here, because I think it's really important to clarify for people watching, Dustin and Mrs. Walker Schuman. So I just heard that question asked twice, and you talked about a 3.0 model, which is not the hybrid, and it's not the, that was a potential hypothetical question, right? If we begin the school year.
Yeah.
But I just want to clarify, Dustin, you have to be very clear. I think we should go to 3.0 model. I mean, I applaud you in totally, saying that we could, I'm going to reserve my comments, but it sounds like you're talking about a third item now on the table that hasn't been offered. So we need to be very distinct. I mean, for the purposes of this conversation, can we keep the conversation focused on what's on the table, rather as opposed to hypotheticals here, because that gets very confusing.
Well, that actually was that if we go to the hybrid model, then we lose all of the honors classes in middle school except for math.
That's fine. So it's the 3.0.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about what the options are, and that really is what this is supposed to be, is a discussion about what options are for fall, all options should be on the table, not just the things that have been put forward as the options that we've determined to date. I think with more information that continues to evolve, we also have to evolve. So I still think that that's fair to cover, but it is a hypothetical. So I hope everyone understands that. Let's see, will Apex be self-paced for the academic year, or just pacing guide, or will there be due dates?
The instructors within the Independence Learning Center actually set the calendar, will set the due dates, will monitor the progress. It's very clean and clear for even the parents to understand, like time on task. We can pull a ton of data behind. So an example I consistently use is I was looking at the fall semester physics students, and on average, most of our students within that fall semester working with Nicole logged in about 90 hours worth of curriculum. And so that when you look at the traditional model of what we can do in a brick and mortar, we can only log in about 60 hours. So actually students did about 30 hours more on average, utilizing the Apex curriculum as that pacing guide, that structure, than if we were just in the brick and mortar.
Yeah. So, and like I've said before, I have a student that did it this entire past year, a full year class, and I have a student that is just wrapping up the summer version of Apex, and both of them have had a very good experience. And the kids that I've talked to that did it, even the AP classes this last school year, they felt that they did get robust delivery and that they were prepared for the AP test. So I understand that everyone's going to have different viewpoints, and there's things that are written online, but I don't think that can be taken, at face value for what the experience is going to be for all of our kids. So I want to make sure I get these last two in because I promised I would. What are the alternatives for kids who would normally perform in band, and how are performing arts going to be handled? What will be offered and what will not, if we can say without the information from LA County Public Health?
Well, at this point, we anticipate through the hybrid model that we will be offering all of those courses, that we will have our performance-based courses such as band, vocal music, all those in place and ready to go at the start of the school year.
In groups of 12 and socially distanced.
Los Alamitos High School put out they lumped band into a low-risk sport deal where this phase 1, 2, 3 different phases. Phase 1, 10 kids, social distance, one person, 20, 30 minutes at the most. So they've actually lumped that into their athletic reopening phases. So
even the brass instruments and woodwind instruments.
Yes.
No.
And even just utilizing outside. I mean, that's a
Outside,
recommendation that is really something that we need to look, TK 12, utilizing as much outdoor space as we can.
Right. But for the kids in the high school, in the performing arts, the only place at the high school that they can really be outside is either the quad outside the science building or the football field. So, and there's going to be a limit to how much space can be used at the same time by sports and musical theater or choir or band. So, I mean, it's going to be a challenge, but the plan is to make sure that they're still there to the extent that they can be consistent with LA County Public Health guidelines.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for giving me so much time. I apologize to my colleagues for keeping you waiting. I just wanted to make sure everything was covered in terms of the questions that parents have been having. But I am still advocating for not returning to school physically on the 17th. I believe that we should talk about a different 3.0 and reassess when we have better information about the numbers of COVID cases, sometime in November before we actually return physically. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Spitz, and then Mr. Kashanian, I will defer to you after Mr. Spitz, if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, let me start by saying that I'm mindful that staff has the unenviable responsibility of operating our schools under draconian restrictions. I think we all understand that. And with that in mind, I guess I have these questions of staff, and maybe I'll just ask all my questions at this time, and staff can answer at some other time. First of all, is staff telling us that Apex is the way to deliver the best possible educational outcomes for our students under these circumstances? Is Apex the best way of doing that? And correspondingly, the best way for the most productive and beneficial assignments of our teachers? So that's my first question I would ask of staff. Secondly, pardon me?
Oh, go ahead.
Secondly, Dr. Brady stated earlier that the blended option is not yet finally defined. So I ask this question: is July 15th still a deadline for parents to choose between an undefined blended program or an online Apex option? Is that choice still out there for our parents?
So can I respond, because I think we're going to lose some context if we keep going. So respectfully, can I answer just a couple of those?
Sure.
Okay, so I want to go back to, when, is Apex the best? Well, I think that, under most circumstances that, having, traditional school and physical school is what's best for most kids. But I would say even if we were back and everything was just like it was last September, for some kids, Apex or a digital curriculum is the best way for those students to learn. And so that's why every school district has this opportunity to have an ILC. This is not unique to us. This is all over the country. For some students, it is the best way for them to learn. And
but
so
that's a minority of students.
I think that it really depends. Students that are older, they know best how they learn. Parents certainly know how best they learn. So I would say, yes, there's a target group of students that will do better in a digital environment than they will in a traditional face-to-face environment. And that's always been that way. So yes, I think that that's there. I think what expands that a little bit now is that it's because of the situation that we're in, it's having people to decide, is that really for me? Where it wouldn't be under normal circumstances, but because we are where we are, people are having to make that decision. And I think what's helpful for us, Mr. Spitz, and the reason why the July 15th date was so important is because we know that it's not for everybody, but for those that do, for those families that know that the all virtual way is the way to go, then that gives us more time to work on, even through this MOU process, that the students that are wanting to attend every day or in cohorts. So it really depends, because we need to find out and take those students and then say, okay, this is the program for them. And we have to know how to staff that enrollment. So that date is important for us, because now we will look at the students that want that, either the cohort, the hybrid. We have to, and the details of that we're going to work on with our union. But I think the all virtual is that people that just knew that's a must for my family, which is why we had 100 people sign up in 24 hours.
So, so you envision then the possibility that students in the same grade level could be receiving two different levels of educational rigor. One level being the classroom, the conventional classroom level, and the other being Apex. So in other words, you envision a dual system where some students would be receiving one level of educational rigor and other students would be receiving a different level.
I mean, I certainly don't look at it as different levels of rigor. I look at it as the people that are in the hybrid approach have more variety, just like our students do on a daily basis with their teachers, and the type of instructional strategies and methodology that they're able to use in their classroom. So it's just that it's different. I wouldn't say that it is less rigor or more rigor. But I do think that what we're putting into place so that our hybrid teachers have access to just another tool. I think that one thing that is helpful this time around, like with my view board, having Apex available. I think that all of these supplemental resources for our teachers is really key, as teachers are having to recreate and redesign everything.
Then my second question that you wanted to respond to was, Do the parents still have a deadline of July the 15th to choose between an undefined blended program or the online Apex? Is that still their deadline?
So as of right now, that is the deadline, and it's not any different than the very first study session, because we've always said that we're not going to be able to detail exactly what that hybrid learning looks like. So very little has changed since that first study session.
Okay. Has staff considered as an alternative returning to the conventional classroom the way that Mr. Margot described it, which, by the way, I think I just don't see why that wouldn't be possible, and I don't see where you're sort of creating different schools that way, where you have your teachers teaching the classes based on the master schedules that you've come up with, and teachers have the option of teaching from home or teaching from in the class. The students have the option of sitting in the class or being at home, and the same level, the same material. It would be, in other words, would be conventional for all the students. And that's a very, very appealing solution to me. And then, which would be, properly enriching and also leading into subsequent totally on-campus coursework at some future time.
So if I can just ask a clarifying question, Mr. Spitz. So you're at home right now, and so if you're the teacher and you're at home, and I'm one of your students, and I'm at the district office in your classroom.
In the classroom, that's right. And
supervising.
Everybody has a computer. It's 1-to-1.
Who would be with me though in the classroom? If you're the teacher and you're at home and I'm in your classroom, who is supervising me? And I'm just trying to understand.
Okay, if to the extent that it's needed, additional classroom assistance could be provided to the extent that that's needed. But you could have a situation where you might have 5 or 10 students in the classroom and 20 of them at home. They're all on their computers. The teacher is either in the classroom or at home, and the conventional classwork is delivered.
I mean, I don't know how that we could possibly do that if we had, a large number of staff that were staying home. It would be very difficult if students are, if one day they go to class, the next they don't, or you may have 5 in a classroom, but you could have more than that.
No, they wouldn't be free to come to class or not come to class. Those that would choose to go to the campuses, take that choice. The others would choose to stay at home, and you just, of course, you would have to see that and how those choices work out. My guess is, considering everything we've heard from parents, that probably, my guess is, that the majority of students would be at home. But they would, I just don't understand. I mean, I have to be shown why that's not realistic. Maybe I didn't describe it the same way that Mr. Margot did, but he and I are on the same page on this.
I mean, we could certainly obviously review any idea or option.
So may I just interject, Mel? I would, and maybe I misunderstood Mr. Margot, but I believe that he was proposing is that teachers would attend school, their classes, as they would normally, you know, check in every day, and the students would be channeling from their homes. Is that not what Mr. Margot proposed?
I think it would be a choice, but as far as the teachers are concerned, fine. The teachers could be in an empty classroom.
Right. I think that's what I'm just clarifying, Mel, that that's what I understood Noah's proposal to be. I don't think there was an option. I think he basically was saying, why can't we just do this one model where teachers go to work to an empty classroom and then students basically log on from their home computer. And then that way, and they're just there as they would normally be delivering education. That's what I understood.
I would certainly prefer that to the Apex option, but I don't know that Mr. Margot wouldn't be inclined to allow students to be in class if that's what they preferred to do. I don't think that that's a key issue here.
I see what you're saying. So you're saying, I see what Mel is saying. So he's saying, take what Noah expressed, but the only tweak here would be that students would have an option, just as they do now, that they would be able to go to school and learn from their desk. And then students who wish to opt out through a virtual experience would do so remotely from their home in lieu of, instead of Apex. Is that correct?
That's right. And there's an add-on. There's an add-on to that. And the add-on is that that those students who wish to have the experiences of performing arts, sports, a cappella and instrumental music, and other grouping coursework would be, you know, they would obviously be students who would be opting to attend schools physically. So that's kind of it's a sort of it's a combination of students deciding to stay home and have regular classwork online, or those who really want to have the performance experiences and be in classes. That's just another side of it that I think ought to be considered.
And so, but I can share with you that if we have to have a certificated teacher in the classroom, so we couldn't just have an assistant in the classroom supervising students.
If the when you say that, in other words, if you have some students in the classroom, 4 or 5 or 10 being probably the maximum for the social distancing. If you have a small number of students, are you telling me that the certificated teacher of that class could not be at home and have a classroom assistant there to monitor
No,
comportment and so forth?
for ed code, you have to have a certificated staff member in the classroom. And you can't have students in the classroom without a certificated staff member over 10 to 15 minutes max.
Okay, all right, then in that case, then I would have to go along with Margot's concept that the teacher would be in the classroom and the students would be at home.
Mm-hmm.
And that, however, that those students who want to have the participation experiences, they would come to school, say in the later afternoons and so forth, to participate in, to be in sports and music and performing arts, other group coursework. So it seems to me, I'm just going to say, it seems to me that that possibility ought to be considered. The next question that I wanted to ask before this meeting started was, in coming up with the options that they did staff receive significant input from our teachers?
Hi, Mr. Spitz, I can actually answer that. So we did a couple of different things. So before the start of the first study session, we had, and there's members from the options committee on here, I think we spent probably close to 10 hours with just different groups, from the assistant principals to elementary teachers to the middle and high school teachers. Then in addition to, we also had meetings with athletics and technology. So we surveyed maintenance and operations. So we surveyed a lot of different stakeholders in BHUSD. Outside of then the fact that then even some of teachers have even reached out to the options committee members, myself included, to also provide additional ideas, insights into for us bringing those options to you guys on the initial study session.
And one option that's kind of off the table, so to speak, though, is that every school district in LA County is being asked to provide a virtual option. So that's so that you can take that, like, that's, you know, that we have to offer that option because of the pandemic and the medical situation that we're in. So it's if you look at, you know, if you look at the full traditional physical school, everyone back, we know that's not going to happen. And then if you take off the virtual model, which is that every school district is asked to provide that opportunity for families, we're talking about that hybrid portion. And a lot of that is not defined, because we do want to work with our teachers on what that looks like and what resources they need. So that's just a different way to look at it.
Mr. Seaman referred very briefly to, I believe, budgetary limitations a bit earlier. And my question would be, is staff limiting its considerations of options to budgetary issues that haven't been considered by the Board of Education?
No and yes, and I'm going to answer it two ways. One, for us to run, when we look at the virtual option that is, again, asked by the county for each district to be able to offer that online virtual option, to be able to staff that, I want us to consider that you have 4 core subject areas: math, science, social studies, and English. You would have to assign, I'm going to use the middle school alone, those 4 core subject area teachers to that virtual academy to be able to offer not only regular level, but an additional honors level. Plus, you would have to assign physical education and any of the performance-based courses. So alone at just the middle school, let's say, That's 4 additional teachers that we would have to post and hire at about $120,000. So $460,000 just to offer math, science, social studies, and English without offering any elective coursework. And then we'd have to replicate that at the high school, and then we'd have to replicate that at the elementary level for every grade band, and in addition to specialists. So earlier in my comment over my slides of you have to consider there's about 7 schools running simultaneously in the fall of 2020 to offer all the things that people have asked. You would have to employ all those exact same teachers, the ones that are teaching in the classroom, and then replicate that for the teachers that would then teach the virtual. And so the ask financially would be, I would need to be able to hire all those teachers to be able to offer all those courses virtually in replacement of a canned online curriculum. So that would be the financial ask.
Sounds like it's quite challenging. I guess the last thing I want to say is that I agree with Mrs. Walker-Schuman that the elementary grade levels need very different treatment from the middle and high school students. So, Mrs. Hacker, that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Spitz. Mr. Kashanian, your turn. Thank you for being patient.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by saying I agree a lot with what Mr. Margo said about the third plan that we're starting to talk about. I feel like it gets rid of many issues. I feel like the hybrid plan, like we were talking about, if we have 12 people, if there's more than 20, if there's 25 or more kids in a class, it's not going to be able to, I don't think it's going to be able to work out. I feel like that just brings about a lot of confusion. And then also just like passing periods and cleaning, I feel like it's too much, and I don't think, personally, I don't think it's going to work. And then for the independent learning, many people have problems with the education and thinking that it's not rigorous enough. I feel like the best option, therefore, is to just have the teachers in the class and the students at home. I feel like that gets rid of so much confusion. All teachers have to be at school. There's not going to be any reason for any teacher not to go to school. They're in a classroom by themselves. And then all students are at home and they don't have any option. There's no option anymore. It's you sit at home, you take this class, and that's it. I feel like that gets rid of so much controversy, and then yeah, I think that's a great option, and we should really consider it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kashanian. So Dr. Berge, did you want to clarify for everyone, are we being asked to, I know that you said that we're being asked to provide a virtual option and that all districts are being asked to comply with that request. What about the, the hybrid option or the physical option, if you will? Is that something that is recommended at this point, or is that an optional option for districts to consider?
So, let me just say that, first of all, this is what I had hoped to happen tonight. And it's people can see this very unscripted, and it's an honest conversation. And I think that even from the very beginning, we knew that as time went on and the things would grow, change, and evolve. And I think that we're looking at this from so many different perspectives, that part of the problem is that we're not getting information fast enough. We're not getting concrete information and guidance that we need from our own county. That's putting us in a really bad spot right now. And that's different from when we were talking about this a month ago. And so we've shifted now to a very kind kind of natural and authentic place. Again, this is supposed to happen. It's supposed to be a little messy. And it's supposed to be people talking and about their feelings and sharing. So I'm very happy about the way that this meeting's going. And I think it shows this transformation of just daily getting just inundated with information and lack of information, to be perfectly clear. So it's interesting that some of the conversation came up tonight as it did, because I'm often asked, and they'll say, as a superintendent, what is the best and what is the safest way to run your school district? And so that's often asked. And it's like, that's much different than some of the options that we've provided, because it's not a convenient option. And as you heard tonight, and then I'll answer more of your question, but as you've heard tonight, there's so many unknown factors about, being in such a county that has the highest rates in the nation for new cases of COVID-19. And then how do we plan? Well, when we started to first plan, the cases were coming down. And so now we're in a different place. And so now we're having conversations like the ones that we were having tonight. Like, what are you going to do if you have a staff member or an adult that comes into the school, or a student that is COVID-19 that has now just gone through 6 different classes? And what are you going to do? And we still don't have answers for that from the public health order on how to handle that. And so there's going to be practices in place where you isolate that student, you do some contact tracing, but this is an unbelievable ask of the administrators that we're turning into public health officers. So when people do ask me, it's different today than it was when we first started talking because of the lack of information. And I know that it's not convenient for parents. And I know it's a struggle. Hybrid learning is a struggle for our parents, and convenience with childcare. And can we spend more time, at some point talking about that, because that's an issue for our parents. But the conversation tonight is, it went in a direction that I was very proud to have this conversation about having the teacher in the classroom where it's safe and it's a controlled environment, and you're not having to wipe things down to a certain standard, or having the risk of students coming in and sitting in front of a teacher. If our jobs are to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, which is what you hear on the news, if that's true, then having this conversation is a good one, because how can we best oversee instruction as administrators? Be here, in our offices and in our schools, with our teachers and with our staff, in a very protected, controlled environment. And so while that's something we can control, what is out of our control is that, and this is no disrespect to families at all, but families are treating COVID-19 differently from one house to another. And so you may have a family. I'm sitting in my office and I'm watching kids come by in packs of 7 or 8, no mask. There are students right out here. And then they're going to go home. And then they're going to come into our classrooms. And that's where our staff is. And so that's happening right now as I speak, right in front of the district office. There's kids. And so I don't know how we control that, and I think we've got a pretty smart team, but I don't know how to control that. I don't know how to take a student that has COVID-19, or then a staff member that's spent, the last week with other staff, in keeping masks on people. If we're looking at it from that perspective, and I don't mean to turn the conversation upside down, but it's a good one to have, is what's the best that we can offer from a perspective of delivering education, TK through 12, and one that we can absolutely control and mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And so,
Okay.
What am I asking today is this was supposed to happen. Like, this is great dialogue from all the board members, all the questions, even the questions in public comment. Well taken. So how do we fix all of those things? And there's a way to do it.
So I appreciate appreciate that exchange, Dr. Breggy. Is Mr. D'Amico on the phone? I mean, on the line? I don't see him, but I'm assuming he is, right?
I am.
Okay, hi. So
Hi.
I guess I'm going to bring you in a little bit since you're the technology expert. If hypothetically, and you know, I'm very happy about this exchange, Dr. Breggy, as you are, and I'm happy to see that, you know, Noah and it sounds like Mel are on board as far as, you know, wanting to seek and find out if this is another option that we should be looking at, the one that you just mentioned. You know, this is the best ideal way of, you know, pushing education and mitigating issues of risk, and also perhaps even having total control of offering equal instruction across all levels, as we used to, you know, a few months ago, right, when we were there physically. So,
Right.
Mr. D'Amico, if we were to do that, what would be required for you, for your team, to make this work? Because I understand, from my understanding, the ViewSonics really doesn't have without a camera. Otherwise, you're not feeding the data being fed into the computer doesn't transmit over. I mean, it could be transmitted over to the ViewSonics, but cannot be put on the screen without a camera. Is that correct?
So the ViewSonics, sorry, there's a bad back feedback. Okay, that's better. So the ViewSonics don't have a built-in camera. So we've priced out what it would cost to put cameras on the ViewSonics with some input receiver so that teachers could actually stand, not just, so teachers could move a little bit and still be heard. And what we've been sort of planning around is the idea of a blended option. But if the option were teachers are in classrooms delivering instruction, the ViewSonic is the tool. Teachers have a lot of technology-based options for delivering instruction. They can pre-prepare lessons using the ViewSonic. They can do live instruction using the ViewSonic. They have the ability to display what's on their computer screen via the ViewSonic. So there's a lot of tech-based options for those teachers. And I do think that our I4 coaches, based on where the conversation is going tonight, if we were going to present from classrooms, let's say, and have the students working from home, that's a much easier set of problems to address from a teaching standpoint, and allows our coaches to focus on what do we need to do to deliver, to ensure that teachers can deliver that kind of instructions to kids at home. And then the rest is making sure that kids have what they need at home. You know, we are already planning, my team's already planning around the idea that kids are going to have to take, even in the blended option, kids are going to have devices that they can bring to school and take home, because we can't leave devices at school, you know, and on their off week, or they're at school week, the devices are at school, they go home, where are the devices? So the devices are going to have to follow the kids anyway. Does that get to your question, or part of your question?
Yes, that clarifies that piece. Thank you so much. So I guess the rest of my questions were really based off the two models that have been provided as options for parents. I'm not sure how you feel right now, Dr. Breggy, based on the discussion. I want to be, you know, I don't want to spend more time asking questions. If you feel like you have some rethinking of, you know, this third option that has kind of emerged out of this discussion. So yes, you can jump in, but yes, Mrs. Marcus, I absolutely, sure.
All of this has brought up an interesting thought in my mind, and that was something I had thought about a long time ago during this. If the teacher were to go to school and teach from her classroom to an empty class, she would be using all of her normal stuff and all of her normal curriculum.
Yep.
Why would we need Apex? That's the question that I then raise, is that would we have, you know, because of the or because the teacher's got all of her stuff right there in the classroom to teach from.
That would be instead of Apex.
Yes.
No, you guys, it would not be in place of Apex. It would be in place for the hybrid model. Apex would still be in play for the independent study program that the district supports and has supported for years. We've just multiplied it in the case to offer for a virtual option for our students. If you're giving direction, I'm sorry to just kind of cut in, but you're giving direction to go completely virtual, we would have to work on that hybrid, that home learning plan 3.0. And again, that's that hybrid model morphing into a virtual model. So Apex was not a part of the hybrid conversation at this time still.
And that would be through the MOU.
So wait a minute, I need to clarify that. Are we saying that if we propose what we just spoke about, having the teachers show up at work and having the students stay at home, you would still push Apex?
I wouldn't necessarily say to push it, but it's not something I think it needs to be pushed, but it is an option for somebody that prefers to have the digital curriculum. I mean, it would still be the option for the parent. Like I think a lot of people would find, I think we'd have a lot of people actually move from the virtual model to this option where the
okay, so I just want to stop you because I want to just be clear, because if I'm confused, I'm thinking other people are confused. Just want to be clear. So we have the virtual option, still untouched, driven by Apex, correct? But this new option that we're discussing does not bring Apex into the picture. It's driven, the assessments, the lesson plans, everything is driven by the teacher in the classroom, just as we used to do it physically at brick and mortar. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Are we on the same page?
The teacher uses multiple supplemental resources, just like what happens every day.
Okay, so I just want to be clear that ILC is no longer, the ILC, let's call it what it is, it's independent learning. It is not a,
it's called Independent Learning Center for a reason.
Yeah.
It is
independent
learning.
I think, to be fair though, I think parents are going to want to know, and this is through the MOU process, what does that look like, because it is still a change so we still have to work with our teachers on what that looks like. And let
me just ask you hypothetically, Dustin, if we are rearranging and switching gears, if we were to do that, why still push Apex on the virtual? Why not? We're talking about virtual education in essence, since students now can log in and be part of that experience via home. So why are we going to build another school, if you will, through Apex? Why? Because I'll tell you, after hearing from the teachers today, and really from parents and I've done some research on Apex, and I know everyone's experience is different. I can count with one hand how many people like Apex, and I've received several phone calls from teachers and parents who have had some experience with Apex, and it hasn't been favorable at all. So, and students also. I mean, I know some students who have said that they had a great experience, and I agree, everyone's experience, it's not really, I wouldn't know about Apex. I've never used it. I have no interest for my kids based on what I've read. And I've also talked to other teachers and other districts who have said that they choose other online programs because they don't like Apex, or it's not a choice for their district. So, it's a pick and choose. It's what we pick and we choose. But I'm just asking, if we're going to really consider this option where it's kind of brick and mortar, but it's removed, the teachers are, operating from their classroom, students are at home, why is there still a need for Apex?
So you need to separate the two programs. So what we are discussing is we're taking the hybrid model and then stating that we're going to morph it, keeping students home with a one-to-one device and having teachers deliver instruction in the classroom that can be viewed through the device. we still have students, regardless of COVID-19, that still participate and will still choose to participate in an independent study program. By CDE law, it states that we have an independent process or program for our students. APEX will still live there, and that's what will still be delivered to those students that are working models, actors, school refusal students, or have
no, of course, I understand your point. You're saying it's always been there for those type of students,
and
we're not touching that. We're leaving that. But I'm saying, are you adding to that load with more students because you're offering it as an option going forward to the regular student who would normally be at school? That's the question.
If there's direction from the Board of Education for us to create this third option and work with our union through an MOU, there would be way less teachers that would even want exposure to having that digital curriculum. However, I want us all to remind ourselves, we keep using the word APEX, but we also use mystery science. We also use Generation Genius. We also use everything is a digital curriculum nowadays. This one just is comprehensive with multiple courses. So if we were to create this home learning option 3.0, option C, whatever you want to call it, we would work with our union and our teachers to leverage what they need to make this successful. And for some of them, it could be the utilization of APEX to keep that digital curriculum while they're delivering the instruction. Some might want to create their own digital curriculum. That's something that we have to work with the teachers on doing that for that option.
Okay. So yeah, I think that would be ideal because that would take care of the option that we just discussed. Would be ideal. Yes, Ms. Marcus, let me just finish my thought and I'll defer to you. But I believe that would take care of the issue with the honors at the middle school, right? That becomes a non-issue. It becomes a non-issue for the specials, right? It takes care of that issue. It becomes a non-issue also for the AP student who needs to take AP Chem to get into that engineering class, engineering school in college, but cannot through the APEX Center, yet the parent or he or she has a health issue. So, so I think it, and it also, you know, of course, I think teachers also feel more comfortable coming to school. It's not, none of these options are perfect, you know, because it's not like you can build your own pizza as we go. Everybody wants what they want and they want the tweak that they need. But I think this would be an optimal opportunity for us to consider. Dr. Brady, I want to ask you something, or Dustin, whoever wants to jump in. So we have this situation now where we have surveyed parents, we've surveyed teachers, right? You all surveyed teachers, I believe, I think around May, at the end of May. If this was supposed to, if this option here were to be considered, how would you move forward? What would be the next steps? And how would you capture how many students, how many teachers would be interested in pursuing that particular path?
So, I mean, we would need to, as a team, sit down and it's kind of perfect timing anyway, because we, you know, we're working with our teachers tomorrow for a session. So we would need some time to be able to, as a team, clarify, answer some questions, because it brings it while this answers a lot of questions, we would really need to do what we can to help with childcare and things like that. So it, you know, every option brings up something else, but I think that you know, we would just need some time to show you what it looks like, just so that you can see what that looks like. You know, we could do that. You know, the rest of the week we could start to work on that. I think what it does is we're struggling with, you know, what the protocols are going to be. You know, we're actually starting with something that we didn't before. I mean, we're trying to get the best of everything. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to look at what's the safest for staff and students. And because you have to have that before you have quality instruction. And so, we're finally kind of, morphing into a really good direction here. Our true north is safety. Yes, there's inconvenience. We'll to look to see what can we do to help mitigate that. But it also then starts to correct a lot of those same concerns about the instructional delivery and offerings. So it's starting to correct a lot of the feedback that we're getting as well. So this is why, I knew this would be a little messy, and some people,
I totally appreciate that. And I'm just going to ask you to answer this question. And I think this is why Mr. Spitz was asking about the July 15 deadline. Considering this option, how what happens to that July 15th deadline? Does it still exist? Does it get amended with more options, or do you move the date? Because it's so close, right? We're so close to starting school.
So I think and that's such a great question, Mrs. Hacker, because I think it's important to go back to something that we made a decision as a cabinet a month ago, where we said we want to find out who wants that true virtual option, instead of we weren't asking for people to also enroll in the hybrid, because we didn't know what that was going to look like. So it's really finding out for those families about the virtual option, is that who are those people that are the true virtual option, because we didn't discuss this before. So we didn't say, yes, it's your teacher, and yes, you have exposure to your teacher every day. Like we didn't express that, because that wasn't part of the option. And so it would be interesting to find out how many people, would still stay in that just the virtual option, which is what we've said from the beginning. Whatever that is, we have to provide that all virtual option. And those are people that want to know exactly what it looks like and know what it is. They kind of know what they're getting. And instead of waiting for us to work this out in an MOU. But I think there's so many people that had questions about the honors classes, not getting what they wanted to. They want to see their teachers. They love our teachers. They want to hear our teachers. They want to see our teachers. So I think we're going to see an exodus, if you will, from that all virtual, to then, just migrating over to, a different scenario where the teacher's in the classroom every day. So I think I
think it forces us to consider that. But I just, for everyone watching, because time is of the essence, and we have that July 15 date out there, and now it looks like we're seriously considering this third option, which might resolve, as you just said, every issue.
I think this is important, Hacker, that we're not taking anything away from anyone. So we haven't overpromised somebody. We still have that for those people that know that is exactly what I want. That's what I've wanted. We're not taking anything away from them. What we're doing is creating more opportunity for some people that weren't sure, and they selected it anyway, and they weren't really sure that this potentially, I think that this will change a lot of minds. And some people will say that this is, this makes sense to me. This is, my teacher, I get to see every day. So I just feel like we're, again, I don't think we're not taking anything away from anybody.
Can I just ask a real quick question,
Mrs. Marcus? I'm sorry, just a minute, Mrs. Walker-Schumann. I saw Jonathan has a question, but first, Mrs. Marcus.
Okay,
Mel has a question, and yes, go ahead, and then you can speak, Tristan.
Are you asking me? Can I speak? Okay, I just want to say, so if I'm very at this point, thinking way outside the box. But if if parents still want the virtual, regardless of whether it's this or the APEC or whatever, there will be a different teacher for that group of students, right? Than the classroom teacher who might be operating under the other plan, right? So there'll be still a teacher for both. Okay, I just want to clarify that. so that people understand. And I also think that when you have this meeting on Thursday and Friday with these parents in the middle school and the high school, that a lot of these questions are going to come up, and you'll have to address them and show that there might be these possibilities and so on. So it may change their minds, and that's all I really wanted to say. Okay.
Okay, so Mel and Jonathan, I saw your question. Jonathan would like, Mr. Krishanian would like clarity as to what this option 3 is being called, right? Mr. Krishanian, that's your question. And so we'll get to that in a little bit, Mel. And then I'm not done yet with my questions, but
Are you giving me the floor?
yes, Mr. Mel, so it's yours. Yours is the floor.
Okay. Dr. Breggy, it seems to me that what we have been talking about here, and of course, it's just it's a new idea that has just come up. No flesh has been put to it. It needs to be fleshed out as quickly as possible. However, I can tell you that we haven't pulled the board, but it may be that you have that you could wind up with certainly a majority of the board in favor of this new idea, where you would have the teachers teaching in an empty classroom, the kids at home, and the parents who have already chosen, who have already responded to the July 15 deadline, and those who yet would, don't understand this, don't understand that the option here would be for the students to have normal, conventional learning, but online, and that the other option is an independent study option. They need the parents need to see that this is a completely new set of options. And I'm just going to suggest that you consider maybe that you advise parents quickly that we're looking into another option, another set of options, and that they will hear further from you in the immediate future, in the near future.
And if I could just make a suggestion, Mr. Spitz and Mrs. Hacker, if you will, I really do think it's important so that we don't make this confusing. Is I really think that it's still 2 options. I really think it's 2 options. It's, you know, we still have that virtual option, which I know some people will take, but I already know, and I'm already getting messages that people want to see their teacher. They want to be with their teacher, that it would not be the numbers that it's at now for sure. But I want to be careful because we are not going to get anywhere if we have a hybrid and then an option C. It's just, we are not going to get anywhere if we do that. And so
I think that I agree with you. There should be 2 options, but what I'm saying is that I think that a lot of parents who have already opted or will opt by the July 15 deadline, who will opt for the online because they're afraid to send their kids to school,
yes,
are not being given the right information. And I don't think that we should want more students to be involved with an independent study program than those who need that.
Right. Right. I agree.
And that's why I really think that the parents, yes, it's still a two option situation. It's independent study, or it would be the normal classroom, but delivered to the kids at home.
Correct. Correct.
And the parents.
Yeah, that was
And I
actually my
almost-
question. So I'm glad
Okay.
that you clarified that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Dr. Berge, that was my point. And I think, Ms. Marcus, did you have something to say, or no? Okay. That was my question. Like, how do you want to move forward, being that you have two options left? And that's why I asked if you wanted to amend the option, or I'm not sure how you move forward. I just want to be clear after tonight that people would understand what to expect from the district in a form of a questionnaire to say, hey, would you like to reconsider? You know, and I'm just going to throw this out there because I want clarity for myself on this. You know, it sounds, you know, I also was thinking about the 4 days on and 7 days off, or whatever it is, 8 days off. You know, I thought about this, and I think that that would also create a problem for our breaks, you know, for Thanksgiving break and for winter break. If you have one cohort of two groups, one off, one on, you know, the children that are off prior to Thanksgiving, and then this Thanksgiving break, that's 2 weeks of no instruction. And then the same thing happens again during the winter break. That becomes 3 weeks of no instruction for one group. And so we're going to hear about this, like, hey, you know, why did this happen to my child? Or this is that is a huge interruption, considering all of the other, you know, things that we're already asking families to kind of go along with. So yeah, so I was thinking about that. That doesn't seem, it seems to me, and I was going to suggest, but of course this is all kind of after talk, because I think that today we kind of have evolved in our thinking. I'm going to go around and ask the board where you want to go, although I kind of sense that we are all on the same page. But, you know, we do need to think about those issues if the hybrid, you know, plan were supposed to were to remain, simply because it would there's some inconsistencies there that haven't really been thought of, and that create potential problems for us, challenges.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges, Mrs. Hacker. I can also say you're right with, you know, one of the reasons why we went to the where you came for 4 days, one cohort, and then you stayed home that next week while cohort B came, because we did get a lot of feedback from staff that said they were really concerned about, you know, having 145 students for some of our staff coming in and having that contact. And so we said, well, can we, you know, can we lessen that contact by doing it that way? But we know that that's not ideal either. We knew that that wasn't, you know, it's like, it's a shift of, you know, it's a shell game of problems that, you know, that we were doing, but you know, the conversation today takes away, you know, many of them, as far as, you know, what we can offer, the offerings, the safety piece, you know, the concern about, you know, we may not even open. I mean, you know, the shift of going back to school in a hybrid model, and then at the end of August, they close us down. I mean, and then we have another shift. Now we don't have that shift if we continue on like this. So I just think I don't want to underestimate our working families who were also impacted. Even with the hybrid schedule, they were also impacted, our working families. So I don't want to underestimate that we really need to make that a focus, that we work with our PTAs, we work with the city, we have got to do something if we go this direction, that we do what we can to help and assist our working families.
Okay, so let's get direction from the board, or let's just make sure we're all, I'm just going to go around and ask all of you, you know, what you'd like staff to do at this time, and what you're leaning towards based on today's conversation. And then Dr. Berge, as I'm going around, and maybe I'm just going to put this out there because this is authentic and genuine, and so I really would like to hear from you or from Justin before tonight's meeting is over. you know, after you hear from the board, what do we anticipate as parents? You know, what can our parent population anticipate happening? Are they going to get an email that says, so you have signed up for the hybrid program, here's an option? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about how you envision this? And maybe you can, and the right answer can be, Isabel, I don't know at this moment. That's a fair answer too. But what I want to prevent is the load of questions, right? The emails and the questions, because people need to wait. I mean, we're really, this is organic. This is developing right now. And so you have to be a little patient with staff, because I'm sure they're thinking about all of this as we are right now. Is that fair, Dr. Breggy?
I think it's very fair. It is so organic, and none of us have had these conversations because we don't have the opportunity to meet like that. That we would just need some time to be able to you know, in the next couple of days, because I think it's a shift also just with hybrid learning. You know, that schedule's obviously different, but we want to explain to parents too that you know, for those that we have to explain what this looks like, you know, that this is the teacher every day, the teacher's in their classroom, which is what the expectation is. And then what does that look like? Some of that is, you know, a lot of that's through the MOU. So we have to work with our teachers on what that looks like, you know, as far as, you know, what the day looks like, because it is still a change in working conditions. So respectfully to BHEA, like we need to work with them on what that looks like. But then it's an opportunity for parents to say that, you know, this is exactly what I've wanted. You know, I chose virtual because of the honors program, or because, you know, I want to keep my kids safe and I didn't want to send my kids to school. And so, because we have a lot of families that chose virtual because they said, I just don't want my children going in and out of schools. So they may now say that this is what I've wanted. I actually wanted, because I want my kid to be in a classroom with other kids, even though they're at home. So I think if we have a couple of days to put that together and kind of clarify what that looks like. The most important thing that I want you to know, and then I'll stop talking about it, is that nothing's perfect. So I realize that families are in an imposition, as they were with the hybrid model. That was an imposition, but I do think we have incredibly smart people that we're working with that can help us, you know, come to some sort of resolution for the childcare issue. But it is an issue that keeps our staff, which our staff are the most vulnerable people. Like it's all of us coming to work. You know, I know that universities are closing because they can't get staff to come back because they don't feel safe. So it provides the safest environment for kids and for students. And I think we just need to articulate that to our parents and let them know kind of where we are in our thinking. But again, we're not taking anything away. So this isn't a bait and switch. It's nothing. This was organic. We're not going to take that away if people wanted that full virtual. And if they want that, that's great. I think that number will split in thirds.
Can I jump in for a minute with a little feedback real quick? The teachers just did a survey of their union, and it came back, the results have come back and been shared, and it says 57.8% of teachers prefer full distance learning, home learning 3.0 for fall, which is a pretty high number. I'm not sure you can
what was the percentage? I'm sorry.
57.8.
Oh, wow.
That's a pretty significant number in my opinion. And then there was one of the other questions that was asked was, do you have personal childcare concerns for fall semester? 37.9% of teachers said they had concerns.
Okay.
Also a really important number to take into consideration. But there are a lot of other questions that were asked. I think it'll be really interesting to, you know, kind of go through and read what all the feedback is. But I like where we're going, and I'd love to get all of the board members on record giving direction now.
Just one more statement to kind of close this up, because I think we forget about this. This is not forever. And so we have to think about that this is going to end. And so we are also responsible for what is the smoothest transition back into physical school. And I'm telling you, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we're allowed and social distancing is lifted, those restrictions, it's just the students are from home back into the classroom with the teacher that they're already assigned to right now. Those schedules are done.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Berge. So we're going to go around. So we'll start with student board member, Mr. Krishanian, and then it'll be Mr. Spitz's turn, and then Mrs. Walker-Schuman, and then Mrs. Marcus. Mr. Krishanian, your turn. You can tell us, please, if, based on the conversation tonight, the question is this: based on tonight's conversation, there seems to be an option that has emerged that would potentially replace the hybrid option. And Dr. Berge, you can step in if I'm mischaracterizing this. So, if your viewpoint is to consider that as an area for the staff to continue to explore for consideration, please tell us, and you can just weigh in as you please.
Okay. I think that this option, we haven't named it yet, but I'll call it option C. I think we should definitely, my viewpoint is to replace and throw away the hybrid option, replace it with this, and then clarify and send an email to all parents. I think the best way to because now there are many people that were signed up for independent learning that I think would switch to this option. So I think the best way to go about the transition from ILC to option C is just, I think we should just tell all parents that signed up that their sign up will be pretty much erased, and the whole sign up process should happen again, where now we have people signing up for the ILC or option C. And I think this way, I think almost 99% of all students will choose option C the way that I see it. I don't know why anyone would want to go about doing an independent learning unless they're like a actor or someone in professional sports.
Thank you, Mr. Krishanian, for that insight. Mr. Spitz.
Yes, of course, I strongly favor this, call it new idea. I also feel that the parents need to be advised that those students who wish to be involved in performance learning, performance coursework, sports, music, all the others, that those arrangements will be made for those students to be able to come to school and be involved in those activities under certain controlled circumstances. That I think that's a very, very important part of it. But I'm very hopeful that this new idea that was first expressed by Noah Margot, I certainly, and it has so many advantages to it that Dr. Berge has already mentioned. The easy segueing into normal conditions from it. It's just obviously the best potential for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spitz. Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
Thank Thank you. I think this is the best course of action, the safest course of action, and what actually is going to ensure our students have the best options for education. I fully support putting our attention and energy behind developing a robust 3.0. But again, I just want to couch this with saying this, in my opinion, 3.0 only works if we can live stream. It does not work if we're going to go back to what was available 2.0. And so that needs to inform the conversation as we go forward with our bargaining units to really make sure that the whole point of doing this is to offer the most robust education for the kids in the safest environment for the teaching staff and faculty. So it really needs to be a priority, the live streaming portion of this. Otherwise, I don't think it actually has the impact that we're talking about wanting, the outcome to have. But I fully am supportive of it. Absolutely.
Okay.
And wait, one more thing. I think what is really giving parents a lot of pressure in the last several weeks is this deadline of the 15th. So if we're giving direction to go forward with this option, yes, I think we need to, kind of erase the board, take that deadline away, work on this option. And if people still want to opt into ILC, okay, they can, but the pressure needs to be off.
Yeah.
For parents, because I think that really has created a lot of angst and anxiety.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, and I think we've kind of discussed that to great length, and so I appreciate you opting in and clarifying that your position on that. Mrs. Marcus.
Well, first of all, I want to ask Dr. Breggy and Mr. Seaman a question. This wonderful new idea is, I think by discussing it as we have today, and brainstorming has done a lot to think outside the box and think about some other ideas. And the ideas that were brought up were very good. My question is, you're going to be meeting with the parents on Thursday and Friday in the middle school and the high school, as I recall. Would you be thinking in terms that you could be far enough ahead and thinking along this line to bring up that at this point about this idea that came up today, which I really like a lot? And so I don't know whether that would be something, because when you meet with the parents, and if many of them have been watching this, obviously that's going to be a part of the discussion that you're going to face that day when you meet with those parents. Are you prepared to be able to go into that at all with these parents? That's my question for you, so that they would have some idea about what it might look like or whatever. I don't know.
Well, I may need like a shield, but but I think that I would like to see where we are tomorrow. I mean, the virtual coffees, I received so many emails that people love that. So that's a format that we want to continue doing. If we're not ready, I do not. If we need to move those, not cancel them, but just move them, I think that people would appreciate having more definitive information than us trying to throw this together. So as a cabinet, we'll decide tomorrow, but we may want to move them to the following week, just so that we can meet and we can clarify and and have some discussions. Because the last thing I want to do is to start answering questions before we've had a chance to kind of put things together.
Well, that's why I asked that question. I mean, so that you have a chance to meet and as a cabinet and work out some of the details and whether it's viable and so on. And of course, knowing what the teachers might want tomorrow, after which you have your union meeting with Dr. Horvath and the teachers. So I do love this idea, and I do think that you're going to see maybe somewhat of a switch from parents in the independent learning, and the other idea that when you have the chance to go back to the classroom, it'll be a much smoother transition. So for those reasons, I really I think we've come up with some great ideas. And I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank the cabinet for being willing to listen to this and to try to put it together, because this is something that we're trying to make sure that it represents what the stakeholders and everybody wants. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marcus. The only thing I would add, and I agree with everything that's been said, I'm not sure we want to call it, I'm not even sure we should call it home learning 3.0. I think
No.
it's exactly what we were with the brick and mortar. We're just doing it virtually.
Yeah.
Right, I think, because that's going to confuse people. But I do want to say one thing. For folks who've signed up for the virtual learning Apex ILC, I think there has to be an opportunity for them to offer this option to them because they might want to change their mind, right? So I want to put that out there so that if anyone's listening and they're that parent that's already signed up and they're having a change of heart, we want to make sure that please alleviate your worry. You'll have an option to reconsider this, correct? It has to be part of the conversation. Okay, great. So I just want to also say that, look, I think it was Good Morning America yesterday said that the best options, pediatrics, all the doctors believe that the best option is for students to be physically on site. However, I know that is it's a challenge for everybody. I mean, I would like my kids to be at school. I would like them to have that social experience and academic experience. And I would hope that if I could wake up from this dream and that, everything returns to being normal. But I know that that's not the reality of where we're at right now. And so for the parents who are going, we have issues too with childcare, and, none of these options are optimal for anyone. They're not convenient. They're not practical for many reasons. And so we're trying to come up with the best solution. I really believe that the board is committed to coming up with the best solution to provide an educational experience that, proves to have quality behind it. And so I'm very pleased with today's conversation. And Dr. Brady, you have my support to pursue this, I don't know what you even call it, because I don't want to call it an option. It's a remake, I think, of the hybrid option that was thought of a few weeks ago. Is there any questions?
BHUSD at home.
Is there anybody else who, Mrs. Goldstein has been on the line, I think I saw Mrs. Riley on the phone. Anybody else who wants to say anything? Mrs. Riley and then Mrs. Goldstein.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, as the hybrid has kind of morphed into the teachers from school, I started making a list of concerns and a lot of things that had come up when we had meetings with all the different stakeholders kind of along the way, and things because we had talked about the kind of virtual model of either teachers teaching, kind of like the 2.0 model, but so I was wondering if just a few things that I was thinking of is would the K-12 version of this, would it all be the same, or would we still be looking at different versions? Because I'm thinking that that's still going to be important. That even though would be teachers teaching classroom to home, that it's still going to need to look really different for K-5 and then maybe 6-12. The idea of teachers being comfortable live streamed, that is a concern I know of some of our teachers. The assessment piece was kind of a concern for a lot of teachers in the 2.0 model. So as we're thinking about this, I think there are teachers that would like some PD as far as how to best assess in this type of model. In addition to like norms and discipline in this it's not the virtual model, it's the at-home model. And then I know you've already mentioned the sports and the specials, but that is a concern as well, because, I'm thinking about kids trying to take ceramics. Would they be able to come to school once a week or something and do ceramics, or, the play, the music, things like that you really need hands-on. So those kinds of things. And the last one is just the social emotional piece of kids not being together and connecting, because this is going to be new for teachers to meet kids online. I know I taught summer school, and that was it was a really new experience, because when we went in March, I already knew all my students. And so it's going to be a big difference, a big change to meet 150 students newly online. So some PD as far as that goes, I think would be really beneficial to all of our teachers.
Excellent points. Excellent.
Thank you.
Mrs. Goldstein.
Hi, I just want to thank everybody.
You don't have anything to say, right, Ms. Goldstein? No.
Never. I never.
Never. Please.
I always have good things to say, Isabel. Leave me alone.
I do leave you alone, Ms. Goldstein. I leave you alone.
I wanted to thank everyone. Having this organic conversation was really refreshing. It was really great. I know I've received a lot of text messages throughout that it's really just wonderful that everybody's just kind of word vomiting and everybody's feelings are getting heard. I wanted to piggyback. The first thing I wanted to say was what Elena said, is that TK5 is so different than everybody else. And we really need to take time, because live streaming TK for 4 hours just isn't going to happen. So we really need to take into consideration the special needs for the different grade levels. Even TK2 versus 3-5 is going to be different. So you'll need to get a committee together and that type of thing. I really appreciate, and saying this as a teacher, I really appreciate that it was mentioned that we need to have accountability for the teachers, because I know as a teacher and a parent, the degrees of teaching and what happened, and I know we were thrown into it the last second, but that needs to be accounted for. There needs to be some sort of, that really needs to be an important part of that process. I won't be popular for saying that, but sorry. And then my last point was, oh gosh, see, Isabel, now I forgot my last point. Oh, I know my last point was, so I've been tutoring and I'm wearing a mask as I do it. And I just, from a personal standpoint, it is extremely hard to teach phonics with a mask on. I have to step back and lower my mask to say ah and eh and it really, so as much as I was really wanting to get in the classroom with the kids, because it's so necessary at the grade level I teach for social, emotional, and just learning how to be a kid and a student in a classroom, it's proving to be extremely difficult when you are covering your mouth with the skills I'm teaching. So anyway, thanks everybody. It's been a really long meeting, but it was super worthwhile because it was nice hearing everybody's points.
Thank you, Annette.
Thank you. Any other questions for the board or any more clarification? This is your chance right now, because sometimes we don't think of everything.
I want to wish Matthew, Dr. Horvath, good luck tomorrow when he walks into the lion's den with the teachers. And I want to wish you good luck, Dr. Horvath.
Mr. Horvath, Dr. Horvath. Ooh. Dr. Horvath, I just want to say welcome to Beverly Hills Unified School District. And we're very excited to have you, and we're just so pleased that you're here. Thank you. Welcome. Anybody else? Dr. Chisholm, Mrs. Chisholm, nothing? Nothing? Okay. Great, thank you. I think this has been a great meeting. Have a great evening. We're gonna take a 5-minute break, school board members, and then we're gonna convene into our close. Thank you everyone for watching tonight. Have a good night, Pam. Thank you.
Okay, night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Romeo.